Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. It is election night. We've got primaries happening right now. We're going to go through them. We've got some big ones in Texas that a lot of people are keeping their eyes on, asking ourselves the question, is the Senate going to remain red? We've got a big one here in Texas. We've got North Carolina. We've got Arkansas, bunch of races queued up, and other election news to attend to here today. We've got the Supreme Court coming down and saying that a New York racist redistricting plan is in fact racist, and they're not allowed to do that. Create specific carve-outs for certain groups and segments of the voting population based on race and ethnicity. Not allowed under our Constitution. And so we'll go through that. We also have updates in California. Apparently, we're looking like voter ID is going to be on the ballot out there, which we're excited about, and we'll see if they ultimately vote on it when that comes through. And we've got Crazy Eyes Griswold, Jenna Griswold out in Colorado, the same woman who should be in jail. Instead, Tina Peters is in jail. We're going to go through this one because Jenna is now caught in a lie. She said that she argued at the Supreme Court of the United States. She didn't. They tried to throw Trump off the ballot in Colorado. They were almost successful with doing that, except the Supreme Court had to step in and say, you can't throw candidates off the ballot and then turn around and lecture all of us about democracy. We remember that in close detail. But we're jammed today. We got a bunch of stuff queued up. As you can see right here, we've got election results. We've got the New York Times queued up. We got AP queued up. We've got various Kalshi polls that we're going to take a look at and see who is going to win this thing. Usually these are pretty right. And we also got the map and the real votes that'll be coming in. Polls in Texas are going to be closing 9 p.m. Eastern time, and so we should start to see some results come in, and there's already been some issues out in Texas. We've got the AP reporting, voter confusion snarls the Texas primary as midterms begin. And in Arizona, we lived through a lot of this back during the Kerry Lake election when there was all sorts of voter confusion because the ballots weren't being inserted into the machines properly, and people were waiting outside the polls saying, can we go vote now? And then we had Bill Onesie Twosie Gates over on the Board of Commissioners, and it was ridiculous. And so here's what the latest is out of Texas. We've got North Carolina, we've got Arkansas. We'll go through that and see exactly what's starting. Well, let's just get into it right now and just see what the latest is. Over from the AP, voter confusion in Texas. Midterms officially beginning today. Welcome, my friends. We're excited for some elections. Primaries, North Carolina, Arkansas, and of course, Texas. The war in Iran might have some impact on how people vote today. We'll see what happens. Democrats and Republicans are figuring out who they want to lead their party, and control of Congress is now going to be up for grabs. So it's important. The most hotly contested races of the day are in Texas, and we've got John Cornyn versus Ken Paxton. Chip Roy is running to replace Ken Paxton. And we've got Jasmine Crockett versus James Talarico. And the winner of that is going to go up against the winner of Cornyn versus Paxton. So it may be a very close race depending on who wins these numbers. But here's the latest Senate nominations. They say it's possible Republican campaign could continue into a runoff. And we'll see what the numbers look like. Some voters in 2 major Texas counties are being turned away at polling locations, and they're being directed to different precincts, causing confusion and frustration in Texas. In fact, the Talarico campaign, who's a Democrat running against Jasmine Crockett, they say that they are deeply concerned, about reports of voting troubles in 2 major Texas counties. The campaign called for voting hours to be extended, but did not say whether they're going to sue and have a judge come out and extend it. Oh my goodness. It's Alaska? I thought it was Arkansas. What did I say? Hey, do I have the initials wrong? Here's what's going on today. We got Arkansas, so it's AR. Let me fix that. Your boy's a little off on that one. Right there. Dun, 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 dun. And fixed. All right. So thanks for the correction. So that's happening today, and we see Talarico is saying we want the polls to be extended. Some voters in Dallas and Williamson counties are being turned away at polling locations and directed to different voting precincts. Wow. Ex-Governor Roy Cooper in North Carolina is this fellow right here. Roy Cooper speaking at a primary election event tonight. He's 68 years old, has been the North Carolina's most prominent Democrat and his party's leading candidate for the U.S. Senate. Cooper has not lost an election since the mid-1980s, and this made him a potential running mate for Kamala. Yeah. Cooper left the governor's mansion at the end of 24, was considering a Senate run, entered the race. And so we'll keep our eye on this one. Democrats have not fared well recently in Senate races in North Carolina. Democrat hasn't won, but he says he'll be an independent senator and he'll be working on healthcare costs and all the things. North Carolina County Election Board also expected to follow the state on results delay. What is going on over here? Why can't we run elections? The head of the Association for North Carolina County Election Directors says he doesn't believe colleagues elsewhere in the state will release their county-wide primary results until 8:30 Eastern time. So that's 6:30 our time, so about 90 minutes from now. Results usually start getting released after polls close at 7:30 p.m. East Coast, but the state board delayed that because members agreed earlier on Tuesday to extend voting by an hour at one Halifax County precinct. So things are confusing out there in multiple states. Association president called Lee Ann Price, who is also the Johnston County Elections Director, said her office is going to follow what the state board has directed us to do. And elections in 3 counties are also planning to do the same. This guy, Mark Teixeira, he's a MLB All-Star. He's running for office. Former Texas Rangers first baseman called Mark Teixeira signs autographs. Running as a Republican in the U.S. House, going to replace Chip Roy. Chip Roy, we know, is going to replace, if he wins, Ken Paxton, but that's going to be a tight race today. Teixeira is also coming in. He spent 14 seasons in MLB. Jasmine Crockett also, Jasmine Crockett, full of. She says that she sees problems in her home county as voter suppression. Wow. Crockett is now an election denier. Wow, it's going to be fun. Democratic Congresswoman and U.S. Senate candidate from Dallas blamed local Republicans as well as Republicans in Austin for the confusion. The GOP in both Dallas and Williamson in Texas they opted to have voters cast ballots only in their home precincts instead of county-wide. Crockett's campaign said that forced Democrats to do that too. So she says Republicans are suppressing the Crockett vote. Texans don't appreciate having their vote suppressed, and we don't take it lying down, she said. Abbott is going to win. He's going to clinch the 4th GOP nomination out there in Texas, and that should be a pretty easy deal. First elected in 14, on the ballot again. Very little known challengers coming up against him. Abbott is 68, has rarely been seriously challenged, and he's got a bunch of money. His campaign began the year with $100 million, 100 times more than any Democrat challenger, so that seat is going to be safe. Texas could play a big role for the GOP, but it's not guaranteed. Yeah, it's a big one. Saying here, the state GOP-run legislature enacted mid-decade redistricting. We're going to come back to redistricting. We got a Supreme Court decision coming up. Flipping 5 Democratic U.S. House seats. The goal was to try to maintain control of the House, but then you had Virginia, all these other blue states, then gerrymandered themselves into oblivion and eliminated all the Republican seats. The Republican Senate candidate will be expected to have the edge in November, but GOP leaders worry that if it's Ken Paxton, if he beats John Cornyn, Republicans are going to have to defend that seat. Ken Paxton, they say, has got a little bit of baggage around him, and that's going to be something that they latch onto once he is in the primaries. It all matters. Democrats need to pick up 4 House seats for a majority. Republicans are spending millions in a state Trump won by 14 points. And a lot of the Republican Senate money has gone to John Cornyn, who's probably going to lose this. Some Texas voters are talking about confusion. They're being turned away. This guy, Tomas Sanchez, was one of the voters in Dallas County. He showed up, was going to vote Democrat, and was turned away for being at the wrong precinct. Another person, this guy's a student, and he said he had the mistaken impression that he could vote anywhere, but you can't do that. Top Republicans did not want Wesley Hunt to run for the Senate, but he did so anyways. There's Wesley Hunt. And we've got a couple of these Calshies pulled up here. And here's what the current market says for Ken Paxton, John Cornyn, and Wesley Hunt. Wesley's down at 1%. John Cornyn 20%. And Ken Paxton looks like he's going to win this one pretty unequivocally. So, of course, we'll come back and see. But that's been pretty steady. Ooh, what happened back here? 10-14. John Cornyn. That looks like that's an aberration. So he's down to 19. Ken Paxton up at 81%. And we're going to keep our eye on that race. Obviously, that's a big one. So then Ken Paxton will face the winner, if he wins, of this race. It looks like James Talarico, who is up at 90% right here on the day. And Jasmine Crockett, full of, oh, Jasmine. She's down at about 11% right now, according to Kalshi. So we'll see if that holds. Probably will. So it might be looking like, and we might have these called pretty quickly, might be Talarico versus Paxton for the main Senate race when that comes off. And yeah, this is an interesting thing in Texas too. You got to win the majority. So if you split it three ways, so for example, if over here we've got Cornyn and others maybe split this three ways, then we might have to have a runoff later, and I think that's in May, but not positive about that. Now, meanwhile, Attorney General race is looking tight. So we've got Chip Roy over here. We all know who he is. This guy right here, who's been in Congress for a while as a House representative. He's up against Mays Middleton and Aaron Reitz, two people we don't know much about, but he was currently in the lead, and it's going to be tight out there. So you can see, according to Kalshi, looks like we've got 53% to 41%, and he had a little bit of a boost today with Aaron Reitz bringing up the bottom there. So Chip Roy might be in for a long night. Of course, we'll see. But Talarico beating Crockett, and we're going to wait for some of the polls to come in. Now, here's more from the AP. He, of course, Wesley Hunt, doesn't look like he's even in the running. And now North Carolina is going to be delayed by an hour. State officials agreed to keep one precinct open late after workers couldn't get some equipment working at the start of the day. Yeah. Workers at the precinct in Halifax could not get the electronic poll book synchronized for 90 minutes. And they didn't use any backup measures to let people vote. They had an emergency meeting Tuesday afternoon over in North Carolina State Board of Elections. Election officials said counties can go ahead and count votes when their polls close and report the results internally, but the state isn't releasing votes until 8:30 p.m. when Halifax closes. So, another delay. Dallas Republicans scrapped plans to count ballots by hand. They're sticking with voting machines in one of the biggest counties out there in Texas. The Republican Party was going to hand count, and then voting machines are now back. A large labor-intensive hand count is slow, they said. Yeah, we know. And it's prone to human error. So we just use the machines, which are, of course, questionable at best. West abandoned plans for a hand count in December, saying officials are woefully short of the number of people needed to pull it off. And people are being turned away in Texas as of this afternoon, just a few hours ago. So that's the latest there. The New York Times has some updates for us as well. They're also keeping tabs on this. Here's when to expect some results. We're going to hang out and see what is coming in. All three states will also hold runoffs for the top two finishers if candidates don't clear certain thresholds. Here's what to know. Texas closes at 7, but there's 2 time zones over there. Most states fall under Central. Most of the states fall under Mountain. So I didn't know that. So there's 2 different time zones over there. Some are Mountain, some are Central. So voting will continue in some parts of the state for an hour after the first polls close in Texas. A runoff takes place in Texas if no candidate receives a majority. So, 51. That could happen in the Republican Senate primary. We've got several candidates: Cornyn, Paxton, and Hunt. And Cornyn, we've had a lot of problems with his FISA position, with his J6 position, and his gun positions, and more. If there is a runoff, it's going to be on May 26th. In North Carolina, they have a result dashboard that voters can check for updates. Get that puppy queued up. Polls are normally scheduled to close at 7:30, but they may extend voting by a certain period of time. And in Arkansas, not Alaska, AR. Central, 7:30 p.m. We can check their election results over here as well, so we'll get that queued up. But there are lines out there, and Yeah, curious about what the polls say versus the Kalshi markets. 5 things to know about Ken Paxton. I'm sure that's going to be very flattering. Yeah. 5 things to know about John Cornyn. They say he's a longtime fixture of Republican politics. He's occasionally criticized Trump. Cornyn right here, so you know who he is. We've covered some of his testimony on the Senate committees here. So he is 74, out of Austin, and he was, the 2020 election. He said Mr. Trump's time had passed him by. How'd that work out there, John? Last year, Cornyn said, I was wrong, and President Trump was right, obviously. Mr. Trump, of course, the president, is not endorsed in this race. He's endorsed in others, but not this one. He's been in party leadership, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, doing nothing, delivering nothing for us, serving as the party whip, responsible for counting and securing the votes. Before that, he was chair of the National Republican Senate Committee. He is a former justice of the Texas Supreme Court, helped negotiate a gun control law. I knew it. After the 2022 shooting in Texas, the legislation was signed by Biden, helped pass gun control law, which I'm sure is not playing too well in Texas. He led a bipartisan push to overhaul elements of the criminal justice system and helped pass the First Step Act. And so that's Cornyn. He's the current incumbent. Here is what we know about Paxton. He's 63. They tried to impeach him. He was suspended from office after he was impeached by the Texas House of Representatives, which I think was kind of run by like a pseudo Democrat, was acquitted after a 9-day trial in the state Senate, saying he abused office to help a real estate investor. Of course, they're going to sling all the mud against him here because they want him to lose in the general once he wins the primary. And the way these things generally go is you have, during the primaries, the left candidates, the Democrat candidates, shoot way to the left. And they, say that they want to chop genitals off and whatever and invade immigration and all the things. And then once the general comes, they kind of race to the middle. Ken Paxton is more on the right. And I think Talarico, his potential opponent, is actually more moderate than Jasmine Crockett, I think arguably. So then you get to the general, then you have somebody who's a little bit more right-leaning versus somebody who's a little bit more moderate, and that can create a very, very close race. Texas, obviously very red, but we don't know exactly what the margins will be, what the ultimate turnout will be. I think that's another thing people are looking at is what are the vote totals in each of the primaries? Are the Republicans showing up in bigger numbers than the Democrats are showing up? He's aligned himself with Trump. Over the years, Paxton has led the legal charge on some of Trump's top priorities. He sued to overturn the 2020 rigged election. He led a push to set aside the Affordable Care Act, which was also a scam. How's healthcare costs? Are they up or down? Are they more affordable or less? Mr. Trump hailed Paxton's acquittal in the impeachment trial, but stopped short of endorsing him. Still, also declined to endorse Cornyn. Then they go into his divorces. They married in 1986, court papers saying that he cheated on her. Okay. He rode into the Texas Attorney General's office on a Tea Party wave back in 2014. And then the Republican Party, the GOP, squashed that thing real quick. Scandal, of course. And they're going to dig into this, man. They're going to drag all this up in once the primary is over and the generals are upon us. So that's the 2 candidates there. Wesley Hunt, he's down at 1%. Here's James Talarico versus Jasmine Crockett. He's calling for polls to be extended, saying we're getting confusion out there. 37 minutes ago, here are the people that Trump endorsed. Let's see. In the U.S. Senate, we've got a fierce battle. Trump has not endorsed in the Texas Senate. He said they've all supported me, so I like them all. They're all good, and you're supposed to pick one, so we'll see what happens, but I support all 3, said Trump. Paxton is currently leading. Candidate needs to win by 50% out there. Trump traveled to Texas on Friday last week. He gave a speech on energy policies. All 3 candidates were there to, of course, be in the aura. We also have Crenshaw. Yeah. Eye Patch McCain, as he's been called. A 4th-term Republican and former Navy SEAL is fending off a challenge from a state rep called Steve Toth. Trump is not endorsed in that race either, making Crenshaw the only House Republican in Texas running for re-election without Trump support. That's interesting. Crenshaw has at times broken with the president, condemning J6, yeah, we know, and Trump's refusal to accept the results of 2020. Many of them did that. Ted Cruz also came out and endorsed Toth. Wow. So endorsed Crenshaw's opponent. calling him a champion of liberty, limited government, and other things. We also have the 9th District, Alex Mailer, Republican nominee for Harris County. Trump endorsed Miss Mailer on the 16th of February, highlighting her background, Harvard Law School, and West Point. Okay. Ahead of the polls, Mailer was leading Kane by single digits. Going to be a close race there. And this guy, yes, this is going to be an interesting race too. Tony Gonzalez, remember him? Facing a tough re-election fight against Brandon Herrera, hardline conservative YouTuber and gun rights advocate. That's going to be a good race to watch. Trump endorsed Gonzalez, even though Gonzalez is in the middle of this controversy right now, where the allegation is he was using his position to coerce a relationship of the inappropriate kind, like Bill Clinton, with a staff member who later eliminated herself by setting herself on fire. It was insane. Several Republicans have called on him to resign. I think the problem is if he resigns, then the balance of power in the House of Representatives flips over. So the idea, I think, is beat him in the primaries and then let him serve his term out, and then we'll have a new Republican ascend to that seat. Gonzalez has refused to step down. He says all of this is a campaign smear. I'm not so sure about that. I think we've seen the text messages. A spokeswoman for Mr. Gonzalez did not respond to a request for comment on this one. Trump made a flurry of reposts of his Texas primary picks on Friday, but omitted Gonzalez. And we're going to leave that one out. Mike Johnson, Republican Speaker of the House, had also endorsed Gonzalez for re-election. But he said that all came out before these accusations surfaced, and he expects Gonzalez to pick up and address those issues. We also have John Bonk, mortgage broker, Baptist deacon, leads a crowded GOP field vying for the seat vacated by Hunt, who's running for the Senate. Trump endorsed Mr. Bonk for that. And, of course, we'll keep our eye on that. More photos out here. This is Texas? All right. They're all voting. All right. And no matter what happens tonight, some of Cornyn's establishment donors are seething at Wesley Hunt. Woo. Hunt's presence made a costly and challenging runoff election more likely for Cornyn. Some major Republican donors were so concerned that when Hunt called Cornyn to tell them that he was exploring entering the race, they told him, "Don't do it. Don't you run, Wesley." He said, "You don't tell me what to do. I'll run if I want to." House Republicans also watching to see what's going to happen with Tony Gonzalez. Grocery prices are insane. Resurfaced affair allegations are intensifying. And so it's going down tonight. A judge out there in Texas, in Dallas, said he was worried that more voters would be turned away from voting centers tonight as people head to the polls after work only to find out they're at the wrong spot. Man, even if they're willing to go through all that hassle, they may not be in line at their correct polling place until 7 o'clock. And if you get there at 7, you can't vote. Past 7. Polls close. So Democratic Party said hundreds of voters are being rerouted after showing up at the wrong location. And today, the Senate was preoccupied with Iran briefings. But yeah, a lot of Iran news today. And of course, very important, but so are elections. Groups allied with Senate Republicans have poured an estimated $70 million into trying to save him. $70 million went in to save John Cornyn, who's at like 10% in the Kalshi markets. Maybe that money could have been used elsewhere for other more electable people. Cornyn is popular with his colleagues, and he's a former number 2 in the Senate. And so if he gets defeated, that would cause substantial worry in the Senate, where they're anxious about holding their majority. I think that's true. I think there's a stronger likelihood that the Democrats take the Senate seat in Texas if it's Paxton versus Talarico than if it's Cornyn versus Talarico. Because as we talked about on the scale here, the Cornyn is much more in the middle and Talarico is much more in the middle. We really wanted Jasmine Crockett to win this thing, to win the primary, rather. In fact, we would be okay if Jasmine Crockett was the Democratic nominee for president, because I think we would beat the crap out of her. But that is not going to happen. She's probably not even going to win this one. And so we've got polls and other things that will be coming out soon. And we also have the cables pulled up. And so we're expecting them to hop over at some point to do some coverage. Here's what we got queued up, as you can see. Fox News is on Iran. MS Now's talking about the primaries. They're on commercial right now, but they've got some footage out there in Austin, Texas. BBC talking about the French government and probiotics over on CNN. And so we'll check back in with this and see what people are saying as the polls get closer to closing. But we do have some other business to attend to out here. And we'll get into it. We've got some Supreme Court news. Before we get to the Supreme Court, let's talk about what's going on in California. Because in California, we got some good news as well. And here's what we see. Voter ID now going to be on, hopefully, the ballot in California. Published yesterday, saying that the petition has now officially submitted 1.3 million signatures, which is good news. Voter ID in California, could you imagine? A ballot measure has gained over 1.3 million signatures, set to be submitted in all 58 counties this week, triggering 5 statewide rallies to promote this, saying this is common sense, this is bipartisan. We can restore the trust and the confidence of all voters that we should have in our election system, said this guy, Carl DeMeo, who's a Republican California state assemblymaker. The initiative in California is aiming to verify the identity of individuals casting ballots, claiming it would address any concerns of voter fraud. More than 80% of votes cast were mailed in California in 2024. Look at those numbers and how rigged it is. 80% of votes cast in 2024 in Cali, but the nationwide standard is 29%. Give me a break. Other states that have implemented voter ID programs have seen an increase in participation in their elections, including an increase in minority voting, which is weird because I thought Kamala said that certain groups of people just can't go get IDs. Said DeMeo. He is leading the ballot measure and the signature drive through Reform California. Hopefully we get it through. If approved by voters in November, the measure would amend the California Constitution, which is big, and require photo ID to cast a ballot. Think they'll pass that over there? It would also require state election officials to verify the citizenship status of registered voters and maintain accurate voter rolls. Man, we want that across America. Yeah, definitely. And that's pretty interesting. We've got California is one of only 14 states that do not require voter ID. And here's what somebody said. Divisive politicians and partisan agendas will try to politicize this effort, but the fact remains that over 70% of voters, including a majority of Democrats, support this. Nearly half of the 1.35 million signatures we collected came from Democrats and independents. So why is our Senate not doing anything about it? John Thune just, I think, recessed the Senate and is not interested in voting on the SAVE Act or bringing it down. Opponents of the measure said it's going to impose sweeping new restrictions and it's going to harm communities. What do you mean? The illegal voters? Their communities? Yeah, we want them to be harmed. That's the point of the law. The voter ID measure is not about protecting voters. Oh, the League of Women Voters in California, one of these organizations. There's League of Women Voters in a bunch of different states, and they're now suing and changing the election rules in some locations. We've covered one of those cases before. This voter ID measure is not about protecting voters. It is about importing the current administration's lies and intimidation tactics into California, said Jenny. It would expose voters' sensitive info. It's called validating that they are who they say they are and that they're actually allowed to vote. It would create new ways to reject eligible ballots. If they're ineligible, that's the point. And wrongly target voters through error-prone citizenship checks. So since there might be some errors, they just say, we don't want to check any ID, period. And we've got some man-on-the-street activity over from MS Now. Let's see what they're saying here. Turn this volume on.
You're going to go for in this Senate contest?
I'm honestly thinking of maybe Crockett, possibly.
Crockett?
Yeah.
How about you?
Crockett as well.
Okay, that'll be
nice.
Music to her ears. It's really nice to meet you guys. Thank you
yes.
very much.
Shout out
you
to
guys
those
doing
gentlemen.
okay? Everybody okay?
Yes.
So you'll see the very, very end of the line here, Rachel. Just down there. I won't make you guys come with me all the way to the end, but we will be here. They are all going to be let in so long as they are in line by the time the polls close here. And then we will head over to that Talarico event and continue to cover this very closely tonight. Rachel?
Jacob, just remarkable. The fact that the people at the very beginning of that line that you talked to had already been there for.
What is on Rachel's face? Is that makeup? Did she get backhanded? You see that on the side of her face? All right. We don't need to spend too much time on it. So that they're out there. We'll have more results coming in. I'm sure that Fox News and others will swap over there. But California looks like they are getting those votes collected, or those rather signatures collected. Today is the day, said Carl DeMeo. And he's over in California. He said, we're submitting 1.35 million signatures. Voters will take back their government. And this would be massive in California. If they actually checked IDs, maybe it would not be a one-party state anymore. Here's some of this rally.
Thank you. This is truly an amazing day for California democracy.
Heck yeah.
Because in a time when people have given up hope that their government is going to be responsive to them, and that even participating in voting matters, this initiative is the turning point. This initiative is where the people rise up and say that we want a better government. We want trust and confidence back in our elections. Let me tell you, getting here today, it took a whole bunch of people from a lot of different walks of life. Every skin color, every religion, every gender, every orientation, and yes, every political party affiliation.
That's right.
As both Congressman Ken Calvert and Tony Strickland noted, the polling overwhelmingly shows a supermajority consensus for voter ID requirements. A majority of Democrats, a supermajority of independents and Republicans support voter ID. It's common sense. If you need an ID to board an airplane or buy a pack of cigarettes or get a pack of a beer, a case of beer, you need make ID. It pretty easy to use an ID to vote in an election. This is not hard. It's not rocket science. It's quite simple. But the politicians in Sacramento don't want to do even the most simple common sense reforms to restore public trust and confidence in our elections. Why? They don't want this to happen, despite all the bipartisan support. Why? You should ask them that. Why do you not want to have strong trust and confidence in our elections? I think the answer is they like to divide us.
And cheat, too.
And they don't mind when public participation plummets in our elections. In every state that has enacted a voter ID requirement in the last decade, voting participation has gone up, including amongst minority groups. Those are the facts. In this election, you're going to see an initiative that brings people together. And that's not common in today's political world. In today's political world, there's so much division, but here we have an issue that brings Democrats and Republicans and everyone in between together. It's not just the polling. Of the 1.35 million signatures that we're submitting today, nearly a majority of them came from independents and Democrat registered voters in the state of California. More than 18,000 volunteers activated and collected at least 25 signatures each. And more than 150,000 individual Californians downloaded the petition and collected a signature from someone other than themselves.
Nice.
This is a true grassroots, broad-based, bipartisan movement. It's about good government. And I have a message for the special interests and the politicians who failed to implement this common sense initiative on their own accord, who forced us to get 1.35 million signatures. All of your division, all of your lies, all your misrepresentations, they will be brushed aside by the wisdom of a bipartisan consensus that Californians are showing on this issue. In November, by voting to enact the California Voter ID Initiative, we will strike a blow for democracy. We will improve public trust and confidence in our elections. And the fact that that frightens the establishment politicians who have failed us, well, what it suggests is that we need to keep this bipartisan movement going. Not just voter ID, but we need to look for all ways to make our government more transparent, more accountable, more ethical, and more responsive to our neighborhoods.
That's right.
I urge you, join Californians for Voter ID today. Join this movement and let's get it done.
Let's do it. All right, so shout out. That's a nice little turnout there. Look at all those boxes full of signatures, baby. So if even people in California want it, maybe our Senate should take it up and do something about it rather than recess and abandon ship. So shout out to them. We appreciate that. And we'll have some more California numbers when their primaries occur. But we also had questions about the Brandon Herrera race. You know this guy right here. And he is looking like he's going to win this thing, according to Kalshi. And your boy is pulling up the Decision Desk HQ. I saw a great suggestion in the chat for that. Thank you for that one. And looks like he's up ahead over Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez, of course, the man with the allegations of having an affair with a married staffer who then lit herself on fire. And there's text messages about that. He's looking at 10%. So Brandon Herrera may be winning this primary pretty clearly coming up soon. But we're going to keep our eye on this. Let's do some updates, and then we'll check out what the Supreme Court just came down with, because there's some good stuff that they just dropped as well as we wait for these polls to start closing. Election cycle underway. Woo! Tonight's election kicks off the 2026 midterm cycle. Let's go. With dozens of primary contests scheduled. And here is where we see what is happening. I think I had another good angle on that. Where did we just go? Back over at the AP. So January, February, March, which is where we're at. North Carolina, Arkansas, and Texas. On the 10th, we've got Georgia, Mississippi, Illinois coming up. So March, we've got different primaries kind of scattered throughout. April, New Jersey, Virginia. May, bunch of stuff happening in all of these states all across the board. Then June, July's Arizona, shout out. Then August, September, and then we have the general election in November. So we're kicking it off. Thank you for joining us and for being here. We're going to have some juicy elections very, very soon. But here's an update on an extension in Texas. Looks like MS Now is really covering this. So let's see what they've got cooking for us here.
On Election Day, if there will be countywide voting centers. That means that any voter can go to any precinct and cast their ballot. However, the Republicans this time around decided that they were not agreeing to that. Democrats wanted it, but Republicans didn't. And so that means that there is precinct-based voting. So on your register card, whatever address it says in there and whatever precinct it says in there, that's where you have to walk in and vote. That's why there is so confusion. And I'm a data girl, Rachel. I walked in and asked the county judge, the election judge that's in charge here, and he said that at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, 388 people had voted, and about 350 people had been turned around. So those 350 people have to go to some precinct here in Dallas County before they go vote, because they have to find their actual precinct that they belong to cast their ballot. Rachel.
And Rosa,
All right, so yeah, you got to go vote in the right locations. You can't just show up to McDonald's and vote. Find your precinct, go vote there. I'm a little curious if they've got provisional ballots that would allow them to vote provisionally, or whether they're going to execute those or just decide to go back to a different precinct. But I'm sure we'll see more from Fox coming up soon and from some other reporting once the numbers drop. But let's see what's going on at the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, as we're waiting for all of this to percolate and develop, we've got this one. I spell all the words right? All right, good. The Supreme Court of the United States now coming down and blocking what they say is a racist redistricting effort proffered forth by the Democratic Party. You see, the SCOTUS has this one in a very short decision, which is joined by a much more substantive concurrence by Judge Alito. This was coming up on an application for a stay. And so we haven't had a full briefing on these things. We haven't had oral arguments. It's now happening quickly. And so the Supreme Court is acting quickly on application for a stay decided March 2nd, 2026, related to elections. Here's what the short order says from the court. The application for a stay presented to Sotomayor and referred to her are granted. So the changes are now paused. The January 2026 order that was entered by the Supreme Court of the state of New York is now stayed, pending the disposition of the appeal in New York state courts and disposition of a petition for a writ of cert to this court if a writ is timely sought. So we're going to pause the lower decision, allow it to continue to mature through the New York court system. And if it's adverse, let's say to the government or to the petitioners, like if New York says we're going to draw these districts, you can file a petition to the Supreme Court and say, can you come in here and stop this? They said, we're going to put everything on hold until we decide it. Should cert be denied, then the stay shall terminate automatically. If the Supreme Court says we don't actually need to hear it, we can just let the lower court ruling stay. They'll do it. In the event that cert is granted, once we make a decision, then we'll hand that back down and then the ultimate decision will end. That's all we got from the court. Now we get an explanation from Alito, which is quite good. He says, these cases that have been consolidated and presented to us now concern a state court order from New York that blatantly discriminates on the basis of race. Blatant. The New York Supreme Court, which is the state's trial level court, ordered the New York Independent Redistricting Committee to draw a new district for the express purpose of ensuring, quote, minority voters are able to elect the candidate of their choice. Okay. You now are ordered by a judge ordering a redistricting commission. This is happening all over the country, by the way, saying the court can override that, or the court can just invalidate. This is happening in Utah too, with Diane Gibbs, I think is her name, in Utah, just saying we're just eliminating your legislative decision about who and what districts are created. So this is an emergency application for a stay. Obviously, we see some people sued, Malia Takis, and she's actually a representative. So she was very happy about this. We'll come back to her celebration of it. But Alito explains. Now, that is unadorned racial discrimination. Okay, it's like explicit on the books. Create a new district so that minorities can elect somebody that they like based on, I guess, skin color. An inherently odious activity that violates the 14th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause, except in the most extraordinary cases. You can't do that. Equal protection means all colors are treated the same. Extraordinary circumstances exist only when the challenged state conduct is narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling interest. And our precedents, says Alito, have identified only two compelling interests that can justify a race-based government action. When is this allowed? And we talk about this as strict scrutiny, narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling interest. Saying, here's a couple reasons. One, race-based action is when you can mitigate prison-specific risks, saying, okay, we'll allow a prison to separate people based on skin color because it's like a thing. Like they'll kill each other if you don't do that. So we'll allow them to, kind of be separated. Otherwise, there's no compelling need to do it. We also, too, can remediate specific identified instances of past discrimination that literally violated the Constitution or a statute. Neither of those is present here. This is not a prison, and this is not a new district to remediate past discrimination. Instead, in New York, the court based its injunction on an interpretation of state law. But under the Supremacy Clause, a state law cannot authorize the violation of federal rights. So it is therefore an understatement to say that the applicants are likely to win on this because it is a racist, discriminatory attack. Now, despite this, New York courts refused to stay the trial court's order. So they're actually passing racist laws or racist decisions, and it's going through the systems like, yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's okay. No, we allow you to draw a district that will exclude whites. After that highly questionable injunction was issued, the applicants filed appeals in both the appellate division in the state court and the Court of Appeals, which is its highest court. New York Supreme Court is the highest court is called the Court of Appeals, challenging the trial court's order on constitutional grounds. Now, at the same time, applicants asked both courts to stay the trial court's order. The appellate court refused. And the Court of Appeals also dismissed their motion for a stay. So the New York courts of appeals are stamping this. Yeah, no, a racist district is perfectly fine with us. With nowhere else to turn, the applicants came to the Supreme Court. They said, hey, this is racist. Please stop it. Title U.S. Code gives us jurisdiction to review these cases, and that's exactly what we're doing here. It falls within the category of our jurisdiction. We've already ruled on a case called the National Socialist Party back in 1977, and we made that clear. In that case in 1977, a trial court issued an injunction that prohibited petitioners' members from engaging in various forms of expression. Without providing any reasoning, both states, intermediate appellate courts, and the Supreme Court denied applications for a stay, and we processed that. Now, we held that by denying both the stay and leave for an expedited appeal, they were rendering final judgment. And so the same thing is happening here. The New York Court of Appeals decision not to grant a stay or to hear a direct appeal was a final determination on the merits. So their appeals were exhausted. That's why they can come here. It's not different than any other cases. We have jurisdiction. We're the Supreme Court of the United States, and so we can make a decision. Now, we are likewise authorized to grant a stay because it's necessary to aid in our jurisdiction. It's necessary to do this to prevent a state court from so interfering with the federal court that it would seriously impair our ability as the federal court to do things like decide cases. Now, that is the situation here because there is an unacceptably strong possibility that the applicant's appeal in the state court system will not conclude until it's too late for us. They're going to redraw the district, they'll vote, and then there'll be a new congressperson from that district, which is a racist and illegal district. Now, even if it's mistaken, they'll impose it. So by then, the principle of restraint, of course, we know the Purcell principle. We talked all about this back in 2020 and 2024. Purcell is an election decision rule, essentially. If you're getting too close to a primary, if you're getting too close to an election day, you don't want the courts jumping in and kind of mucking up the cases. So the courts say, we'll restrain, we'll leave it alone, and just allow things to process through. It may counsel against our interference. But an injunction is an equitable remedy, and this would be inequitable if it's issued shortly before an election when the rules are illegal. But at this point, the Purcell principle doesn't counsel a stay. We're not too close to anything. That principle concerns late judicial tinkering that can actually disrupt an election. Here, our stay is far from causing any disruption or upsetting any legitimate expectations. In fact, we're eliminating much of the uncertainty and the confusion that would exist if this committee proceeded to draw a new district that we would strike down later for literally being racist. So for these reasons, the stay issued by the courts rests on sound and well-established legal grounds. Justice Sotomayor, she has an accusation, is baseless. And her 13-page dissent is most notable for what it conspicuously omits, Sonia, even the most tepid imaginable defense of the constitutionality of the trial court's order. She's not even defending it. She knows how racist it is, so she's going to make a bunch of other procedural arguments and not actually address what's going on. Instead, her disquisition ducks that issue and demands that we wait until the completion of a series of events that would likely run out the clock before we could even review. So allow them to do this. Sonia wants full briefing. She wants full oral argument. She wants everybody to come in and make their case. By the time that all happens, election's over. You've got a new congressperson emanating out of a racist district. So instead, she ducks that. Now, if she runs out the clock, that would provide a way of achieving what full review would not permit. It would allow an unconstitutional district in the November election and the election of a member of a House of Representatives whose entitlement to the office would be tainted. Illegal. That is the prospect that we should not countenance here. We're not a court that does that. And so we grant the stay, and New York is now paused. Your racist district is now eliminated. So here's the dissent from Sonia. Kagan and Jackson all join. So Sotomayor, the three libs, all are very upset about this. And they say, we don't want to put a pause on this. We should allow New York to continue on with their racist district. They say the 101-word unexplained order can be summarized like this: rules for thee, but not for me. This court has said that federal courts have limited jurisdiction, so it's all procedural. Time and again, you said we shouldn't interfere. Time and again, you say don't meddle in elections. But today, the court is meddling. Ignoring every limit, we take unprecedented step of staying this, and so she respectfully dissents. She says in October, New York voters sued state election officials to challenge the district lines. They claim that the district as drawn violates the Constitution because it dilutes Black and Latino voters. Then Representative Malia, she intervened to defend the current map. There was a 4-day trial. The trial court sided with the voters. It first observed that this action presented an issue of first impression, and then they changed the rules. Trial court stopped the current map, ordered New York's independent commission to redraw the district under 3 criteria. First, under the remedial district lines, minority voters must be able to elect their preferred candidates. Second, minority favored candidates must typically win general elections. And third, the district must ensure that minority voters and their support is decisive in the primaries. So the court's order made clear that this case is going to be ongoing, right? She's saying the lower level court never said it was concluded. And so that means that the Supreme Court now doesn't have jurisdiction because it's still an ongoing matter that shouldn't have been appealed and accepted. So they appealed to a bunch of locations. Then there were responses, more procedural history. And today, the court takes an astonishing step in staying the order, acting against federalism principles, and more. And so she goes on, and it's all about procedure. So this is a procedural defect. They should not have stepped in on this yet. It's not basically ripe enough for the court. She goes after Alito. He dealt with that. And that's from Sotomayor. So you get it. They're in the minority. They lose the case. And New York is now stayed, which is good news. Here's Malia. She's the one who was intervening. She said, we released the following statement about the Supreme Court decision. Today, the decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to keep New York's 11th district intact helps restore public confidence in the system and proves the challenge to our district lines were always meritless. The plaintiff in this case attempted to manipulate our state's courts to use race as a weapon to rig our elections, and they're doing that all over the country. That was wrong and is demonstrated by the ruling unconstitutional. You can't order minority districts to be drawn. Unfortunately, the politicization of New York courts needed to go to the Supreme Court. I thank the justices who stopped the voters on Staten Island and Southern Brooklyn from being stripped of their ability to elect somebody who represents them. Says, whether I serve another term in Congress is a decision of the voters, not Democrat Party bosses and their high-priced lawyers like the Democracy Docket and Mark Elias, who were suing all over the country to try to change the election rules in this midterm cycle. So, big decision out there from the Supreme Court. Some other Supreme Court news. Clarence Thomas was out at a closed-door session, and he's saying he couldn't go there because he had security threats, essentially. He had to zoom into this meeting. Out of the Supreme Court, Thomas bemoans incivility as security prompts the cancellation of his speech. During a closed-door session of a legal conference, Thomas, the Supreme Court judge, expressed concerns that they're facing increasing polarization, incivility, and now security threats. He had to appear remotely. In rare remarks, Thomas told a crowd of lawyers and students at American University that he was going to be there in person, but a security risk said he couldn't show up. I apologize for having to change things, he said, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't endanger anyone by my mere presence. He was appearing from the Capitol Hill office of Senator Mike Lee from Utah. Now, at the same time, I encourage you not to follow the example of the things that have happened that prevent us from being together. Unusual episode, heightened threats against judges. I remember when Chuck Schumer said, "We're coming for you, Kavanaugh. There's going to be a whirlwind." And he never got condemned for that. All 9 justices have received increased security since the leak of the Dobbs decision. They went crazy over that. There were threats. Somebody was outside Kavanaugh's house, called the police and said, "I'm about to go kill this guy." Thomas's remarks to the conference this week were closed to the news media. There was an agreement between his team, but now we're getting some of this stuff leaked out. The group's 2-day conference drew a bunch of other academic Mormon church leaders and Jamieson Greer, the U.S. trade representative. There were messages circulating by student groups. Why is Clarence Thomas speaking at AU, at American University? They don't want him there. The lib college kids don't want a Supreme Court judge to come in there. It's a security concern. Not clear whether the protest was the security concern or what happened. Supreme Court didn't respond to a request for comment. Senator Lee also appeared remotely, delivered remarks earlier in the day about it, and comments were wide-ranging. Man, it would be great to go sit in and listen to a Supreme Court judge. Could you imagine you're in college? Supreme Court justice comes in for a speech, and you're like, get out of here, fascist. Ugh, not good. But we've got, of course, the Supreme Court stepping in to stop the scam and the stealing. And in this case, we have Alito saying this was a very racist district. You're not allowed to do those things under equal protection. If the Supreme Court once again didn't step in, all of the New York courts would have enabled it. They would have just sat there and said, no, this is perfect. Go draw the district so that minorities get all the votes and all the white people are excluded. Or what? It's happening all across the country. We saw it in Utah, and it's continuing on. So big victory out of the Supreme Court. We're happy to see it. Now, we've got some updates. Fox News now covering some of the election stuff, and they've got an update for us. Let's check this one out.
Source like the cane-waving Al Green. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I think this generational shift is a large part of the story, right? Whether it's Talarico or Crockett or these other races, I think it's going to be interesting to see, because you can vote on either side in a Texas primary, how many folks are coming out in these border counties to vote in Republican versus Democrat. I'd like to see what some of that momentum looks like. I think the Senate race between the Democrats is somewhat more spicy than the Republican one at the moment, so people might be crossing over to pay more attention to that one. But I think there's a couple things we can tell from that when we see some of those numbers. Also, as you noted, Cornyn has spent $60 million to stay in this race.
Numbers.
So it'll be interesting to see if that goes to a runoff, exactly what Trump might do in that case and what the party decides to do, because having those two tear each other down until May, if the other side ends up without a runoff, that could be trouble for the party.
And Matt, however these primaries turn out, we have a long run to November. And what we talked about as we started this show, the public opinion polls on Iran, huge support for removing the Ayatollah and the nuclear threat, the threat to the region. If it's weeks and days, right, 76%. But if it goes on months and years,
yeah, inverse
the
relationship.
approval numbers for that goes way down.
I mean, we did a flash poll that had 54% versus 37% support for the president on Saturday. I think those numbers are correct, by the way. I've seen a lot of silly polls since then. They've showed it way down. I don't believe that. But I will say this. This thing has to be quick. It can't last for a long time, because you and I, we've seen this movie before, and it does not end well.
Mary Catherine,
Absolutely.
you agree with that, given what's on the line, and the focus coming out of that State of the Union was good news on the economy, and now this.
Well, look, I agree. Trump's signature has been wielding U.S. power, wielding it quickly and wielding it effectively. And if that is the story here and it doesn't last too long and he's able to keep that message consistent and say, I made you guys safer and this is how I did it and now it is over, I think that will play well. But it's a big risk he's taking, but it is probably a worthy risk to create a safer situation in the future.
I'd bet on Trump any day over the people who continuously predict doom and gloom. I'm still waiting for the stock market crash after the tariffs. I'm still waiting for that. Mary Catherine, Matt, both of you, thank you so much. That is it for us tonight. Make sure to follow me on social media. We had some good...
All right, so that's over on Fox. We should have some polls closing fairly soon. Let's check out what the latest is over from the print media. We've got 7 updates here, courtesy of the New York Times, and still nothing being reported on this quite yet, as we see over here. We've got Cornyn, nothing being reported in, but they did drop some updates. Let's see what else they've got for us. A surge of first-time Democratic primary voters added uncertainty in Texas. Uh-oh. Texas Democrats turned out in unusually high numbers during early voting, including 400,000 people who had never voted before. More than 1 in 4 voters who cast an early ballot in the primary had only voted in a general election before. Since polls and campaigns typically focus on likely voters based on a history of ballots being cast, the number of first-time voters raises questions about the results of recent polls. In short, the polls may be less reliable because the models are all screwed. Over the 2 weeks of early voting, nearly 1.5 million people cast a primary ballot for Democrats, a surge. Sawyer Hackett, a Democrat strategist, said the surprisingly high turnout was good for the party. But given the makeup of the voters, all it showed, he warned, was that voters were engaged. It gave no indication of who they're voting for. And it's probably just about Trump opposition. They're showing up because they're having the same visceral reaction. In terms of who will win, we don't know. Candidates also dealing with this as a stress. Former mayor of Houston is also running. Said that they're going through internal polling and other things, saying they're clearly engaged, but we don't know what they're going to be doing. More scenes from Election Day. Here are the House races to watch. Al Green, remember him? He wanted us all to know black people are not apes. Thank you for that very, very, very interesting sign there, Al. Thanks for letting us know. Says candidates in Texas's 38 House districts are competing in primaries. The redrawn districts have sent Democrats scrambling, leading a handful of incumbent versus incumbent clashes that could shrink the size of their federal delegation. In this one, we've got Crenshaw. He's in danger of losing his seat, man. We want to pull that one up. State legislator assailed this guy, Toth, for his occasional breaks with Trump over election denialism. He got the endorsement of Ted Cruz, and that should be a good one to watch. Heavily Latino areas in South Texas have swung towards Mr. Trump over the decade, but Democrats are hoping they swing back. The primary figure in one of these is Bobby Pulido, Latin Grammy award-winning Tejano singer. Going to be competitive there. Al Green is in Houston. He's in danger of losing his seat to a fellow Democrat called Christian Menifee, who is several decades younger. The two Congress, I don't know, but does Christian hold signs up in Congress? I'm not sure. The two Congress's territories were pushed together in a redrawn map. And so this will be an interesting one to watch. And of course, Brandon Herrera versus Tony Gonzalez. Looks like he's going to be winning that one pretty unequivocally. And it looks like we do have some results coming in out of Texas. And Crockett is winning. You can see it on MS Now. Look at that one. Results in from Texas. Cornyn has got some votes. Bender has some votes. And we don't need to turn the audio on. But Jesse Waters talking more Iran. We got Rubio over there. CNN's covering Iran. Not too concerned about domestic policy when they can spend all their time on foreign policy, of course. So let's see if we can pull up some of those numbers and where those are coming in from. Yes, CNN's got some updates for us here. You can see Jasmine Crockett. Let's go, Jasmine! Yeah! Heck yeah! Man, we're big fans of Jasmine winning the Democratic primary. That's going to be huge. She's currently 9,295 votes ahead, and polls are coming in. Talarico in second. Wow, Jasmine's cleaning up in Dallas. Look at that, right outside Dallas. 70-28. All these, obviously, 55% in. Wow. 55% in out of Dallas. Jasmine's winning in all of these right outside the big cities. Now here, a little bit more rural up in Denton. Talarico's in the lead, 71% in over there. Talarico up over here just by, 50-something votes, waiting for a bunch of the other things to come in. All right, let's go. Let's go, Jasmine. All right. Hopefully that holds. We're not so sure that it will. Now, Chip Roy, we see the markets all shifting in real time right now. You can see as the numbers are coming in, Chip Roy looks like he's down a little bit, and Mays Middleton is closing the gap on that one for Chip Roy, so that's looking a little close over there. We've got Ken Paxton dropped a little bit, John Cornyn up a little bit. We'll see if we can see some numbers on that. Over here, Talarico still up way high. People are still dumping money into him, saying he's going to be coming back. So Talarico up at 90%, give or take. Jasmine at 12%. So people are not thinking those numbers are going to hold, but we sure hope they do. Let's see if we can get some Republican updates. So that's the Senate race. Let's go to the Republican race. John Cornyn, 24,000 votes ahead of Ken Paxton at the moment. Ken Paxton has 91,000, John Cornyn 116,000. Most of these reports are coming in from around Dallas. You can see those in red. 55% over here. Cornyn's in the lead. Cornyn, 43% outside Dallas. Paxton in the lead on this one, 60% of the votes in out of Kaufman County. And starting to see some results come in. All right. Let's see what else we got in the House. Nathan Moran, uncontested. Let's see. Other results are pending. August Pfluger. Where is... Lots of districts out there. So a lot of results pending on that. We'll try to find the other Brandon Herrera race and other races in due time. Governor, Lieutenant Governor. Another one was Chip Roy, Attorney General. Ooh, see, so that's why those numbers swapped. Man, that's not good for Chip. You can see the markets, I think, are reflecting that. So on, Chip Roy's, those numbers are looking down. I think people are seeing those early results come in. Mays, Middleton, 40,000 votes ahead. Lot of runway left. 10% of the votes total in. But Chip Roy looking like he's a little bit behind at the moment. AP has some new updates for us. Let's see what they've got. Brandon Gill wins the Republican nomination for U.S. House in Texas. Shout out. We really like Brandon Gill here. Yeah, so they're calling that race out of Texas, which is great. He has done some good stuff in Congress. Good questioning and commentary from him. Crockett says voting irregularities could affect the outcome. Jasmine is an election denier. Oh, Jasmine. Welcome aboard. She says irregularities in Dallas County or her home base could be determinative. If one person has the right to vote and they can't vote, we should all be raising hell. Yeah, welcome aboard. Yeah, welcome. Said at a news conference shortly after a judge extended voting out in Dallas County. She said, so I'm asking you, I'm begging you to make sure you go ahead and figure out where it is that you're supposed to vote, stand in line, and wait in line. Polls have closed across most of Texas, but El Paso are in Mountain, and so they got another hour in some of these other counties. Voting hours extended in Dallas as well. A Dallas judge came in on this, said 2 hours in Dallas, so that's a big one. The extension follows the chaos in the county and a suburban one outside Austin because the local Republican parties refused to hold joint primaries with Democrats. That means rather than voting at a county-wide vote center, voters in those counties needed to find their own precincts to cast ballots. Hundreds were unable to vote. Democrats asked the judge to extend the poll hours. Crockett said the extended hours only apply to Democratic primary sites because the GOP did not make their request as well. North Carolina is now closed. Let's see what's going on over there in North Carolina. So this is Texas. Let's go over here, open this puppy up, and see what else we've got percolating. Results by state. Okay, so let's go to North Carolina. Their polls are closed. Roy Cooper looks like, well, we don't have a lot of numbers in. It's like 42 votes, 0%. Polls closed. But right now that we're looking at 43 votes. All right. So not much happening there. Let's go over to Arkansas, not Alaska. Anything closing here? Nope. Looks like no numbers in there. So Texas getting stuff to us first. And very interesting. All right, so Jasmine's still in the lead over there. She must be happy about that. Some more counties looks like they're coming in. 54% over here. Rusk, 54% over there. Waiting for some other things to close. Meanwhile, on the cables, we've got MS Now, which is covering it. Fox isn't covering it, which is a little surprising, but here's what we see on the cables with some volume.
The fact that they are choosing to cast their first vote in a Democratic primary tells you a lot about where this electorate is.
Yeah.
You've also got a big sort of identification of Talarico in the biggest podcast in America. Joe Rogan had him on.
Yeah.
He was on, that's a 3-hour podcast. I watched, so none of you have to.
Yeah, pretty sure that's the one where he said that abortion was a gift of God. Do you remember that? Let's look that up. Talarico on abortion. I think he said that, I think like the Virgin Mary almost aborted Jesus. He's like a preacher or something. Let me look this up. It's a pretty wild clip. If I'm remembering this right, on Rogan. Talarico, Rogan. Yeah, abortions were invented in the Bible. Oh, it's real. So here's from RNC Research. This is from the Joe Rogan clip. This is the guy who's running against Jasmine Crockett right now. And let's get this queued up. Boom. Here is RNC Research. Texas Democrat Senate candidate James Talarico says abortions were invented in the Bible. Here's this short clip.
Well, when was abortion even invented?
Well, there were certainly abortions in the ancient world. There's some. And again, I haven't studied this enough to say this definitively, but there are interpretations of certain passages from the Torah where some folks will even say that there is some subtle instructions for how to perform an abortion in the ancient world, certain things to drink, things like that.
Well, when was abortion?
All right. In the Torah, so meaning the Old Testament? Is that what he's saying? Yeah, I'd like to know more about that one. So, yeah. And I think there's another clip on that I'll have to go dig up. That's a longer extension of that conversation. But here, let me just see if I can grab it while we're sitting here. Yeah, here it is, about Mary. Mary almost aborted Jesus, from James Talarico. Here is this exchange. Says, an angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. So she could have said, no, heavenly angel. I don't want to birth the Son of God. So why don't you take me to a Planned Parenthood? Do you have one of those mobile vans? Mary could just go to the mobile van. It's like blasphemous. This guy's a preacher, I guess.
But I say all this in terms of, in context of abortion, because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. Creation is one of the most sacred acts that we engage in as human beings. But that has to be done with consent. It has to be done with freedom. And to me, that is absolutely consistent with the ministry and life and death of Jesus. And so that's how I come down on that side of the issue.
I guess, so that's his justification for abortion. Okay, so Mary was like raped, is kind of what he's saying, by the Holy Spirit. So she's, if this is what God wants, then I'll take this Son of God. But if she didn't, then would baby Jesus not be in her? And then she would not be the mother of the Son of God? All right. So, okay, so that's who's running for the Texas Senate right now. You have to, I guess, go back and read that in the Bible, or please educate me about what he's saying. Here's more from MS Now. They're live outside.
Marcia, come in here, Marcia, because Marcia's holding it down. She works for Travis County Elections. Marcia is the person who is enforcing the end of the line. How long have you been doing this with Travis County Elections? I know you come in as a temp.
8.5 years.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Not this long, not even a presidential.
Not even in a presidential.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying this could rival the 2008 primary election between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Does it feel that way to you?
Yes.
Marcia, thank you for doing this. I know you got to stand, even though you're not voting, you got to stand on the end of the line till the very end. Thank you. And Rachel, there's one other person I wanted to introduce you to. Doug, I want to make sure I get your last name right. This is Doug Greco. He is the chairman of the Travis County Democratic Party, Rachel. And I heard Michael Steele asking the question if he could ask a party chairperson in the state right now, who are the people that are online, who are you meeting that are showing up? Maybe I'll just pose that question to you. Who are these first-time voters that are coming out, and what are you learning about them as you watch this line here in Travis?
Well, right here at UT, it's a lot of students, and a lot of students that I've talked to today voting for the first time. And countywide, folks who haven't voted in primary elections are coming out for the first time, general election voters. There's just tons of energy. And we're getting some Republican voters voting on the Democratic side.
And that's what we were wondering about. And do you have any indication how many Republicans might be voting on the Democratic side? And is it a strategic vote, or is it they're truly interested in voting for the Democrats this time around?
The numbers that we've seen, it's relatively small, maybe 5%. 10%, 7%, but this is mostly Democratic voters that may not vote in every primary or may just vote in the general election that are driving this surge.
I'm sure you think that's a good sign here in Austin.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, thank you very much. Nice to see
Absolutely.
you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Rachel, just a quick word about vote centers. Here in Travis County, Doug and I were talking about this as you look at the line, and I'll continue to walk it just so you can see. Vote centers was an idea, I think you guys know, I was an election reform advocate before I was a journalist, and Fort Collins, Colorado, after the Help America Vote Act, set up this idea. They pioneered the idea of vote centers where everybody could come in and vote at a single central location. Fort Collins had some of the highest voter turnout in the entire United States of America after they set up the vote centers, and that was copied. It was emulated because of how successful that program was, including here in counties throughout Texas, particularly after COVID, when we saw, obviously, opening up and increasing access to the polls was something that, no surprise, people showed up and actually participated in. And so this idea now that a vote center like this is where you can show up anywhere in this county, for example, is something I think a lot of voters like to take advantage of. And so in Dallas County, in Williamson County, to the north of Austin here, this rule change, going back to the old precinct level model that is connected with lower voter turnout and increased barriers to the polls, it's no surprise people are frustrated with that tonight. And then that ruling came from this judge. And polls are staying open in certain counties a little bit later in Texas tonight. As far as here in Travis County and in Austin, the vote centers are still working all over the county. You can show up at any of the locations. Not now that the polls have closed. Marshall will shut you down at the end of the line. But this is a model that has worked. It is continuing to work, and people are obviously taking advantage of it tonight here in Austin.
Jacob Soboroff for us at UT Austin. Jacob, thank you very much.
All right, so Crockett is up still. We're looking at some of these numbers. They're coming in over on CNN. Cornyn is ahead, 20,000 votes. Ken Paxton, 125,000 to Cornyn's 148,000. In total, only 14% of the votes in. A lot of this coming around Dallas. Some outside of Austin. 56% in there. Tight, man. Cornyn and Paxton very tight out there. Houston has got Fort Bend, 72% in there. Paxton's on top. Not by much, by about 1,000 votes. Another county, Galveston, Texas, also tight. Cornyn's losing there by about 1,100 votes. And the numbers continue to come in. That's in the Senate. Now we go back to the Democrats. Talarico still losing. Man, Jasmine Crockett, let's go, Jasmine. 32,000 ahead of Talarico. Man, we hope those numbers hold. Nice. All right, let's check out the Calshies. Wow, look at this one. Chip Roy. Yikes. Those are closing up tight. Chip Roy's team, very nervous out there based on those aberrations. Shifting right in front of our very eyes as the numbers are coming in. Here we go again. Look at those shifts here. Paxton dropping. Cornyn has a better chance. Cornyn was at 20%, bumped up to about 29%. Ken Paxton dropping from his 80% to about 75%. Wesley Hunt still at 1%, not much there. And Talarico, man, he's pulling ahead, even though the early numbers are showing like it's not looking good for him on the immediate returns. And let's take a look at some of these others. So we were looking for Herrera. See if we can find that one. There it is. Yeah, so he's looking good. And those numbers are still pretty tight for him. 95% at one moment. Tony Gonzalez struggling out there. So, and that is Texas 23. Let's see if we can go find that one. So we got the House. We want Texas 23. Boom, right there. No, that's not it. Which one is he? All right, I'll find that one. But numbers still coming in. Let's see if we got any updates from AP. Couple of updates here. North Carolina elections, confusion out there. Polls are beginning to close. See any other updates down here? No fanfare for Cornyn as he's watching the voting results. Longtime Texas senator is not having a big election night party with his supporters. Him and his campaign team are huddled behind closed doors at a downtown Austin hotel, watching the results come in. Campaign saying he'll address the media once the results become clear. 74 years old, has a serious challenge. Bitter campaign unfolding. And those numbers are coming in as we speak. Police detain a man and remove ammo magazines from a car outside Paxton's party. Uh-oh. The man was detained outside the Republican Ken Paxton's watch party in Dallas. Ammunition, magazines, shotgun shells were removed from the car. Placed in the back of a Dallas police cruiser, later taken away. Not immediately clear whether the incident was connected with Paxton. He's running for Senate. Paxton is holding a primary night watch party at the Marriott. Nice. Attendees were starting to arrive when the man was detained. Dallas police and Paxton did not respond to comment. Alex Muse, one of the attendees, said a man wearing a camouflage hat, sunglasses, and mask, covering his mouth and nose, entered the hotel and was immediately instructed to exit the property. Muse said the man was also carrying a camouflage rucksack. I think it alarmed everyone. He's in camo, had a rucksack on with a face covering. Yeah, but isn't that Texas? Doesn't everybody walk around like that in Texas? Just like when you go buy some milk to the grocery store. That's what's so beautiful about Texas. And so we got more results coming in. Brandon Gill just won that race, which is great news. He is a formidable figure in Congress. This guy, Jesus Jimenez, is at Club Vivo, a nightclub in downtown Dallas that is hosting results watch party with Jasmine. Oh, gosh. Are some of this being live streamed? It is unclear when Crockett is expected to arrive. Polls were supposed to close at 7, but they got ordered to be extended. Hundreds of voters have been turned away. Yes, this is a big question. Is Texas going to go blue? It better not, man. Texas Democrats have seen this movie again and again. Booming Black and Latino populations out there. Still more articles about long-term trends tilting cities. And, of course, Texas got invaded like the rest of us. No Democrat has won a statewide election since 1994. They all got wiped out. But Beto, he came very close to beating Ted Cruz. Little too close for comfort for us. The argument in this one is about Crockett. Crockett is increasing black voter turnout. That's her path to victory. But Talarico is arguing for a larger coalition with independents and some Republican voters and some, I guess, biblical abortion lovers. No theory has worked for Texas Democrats thus far. When Crockett was in elementary school, the last race was in 1988. None of them were even born yet. Talarico not even born yet. So are we going to have a new Beto mania? Remember him? Gosh. Mr. O'Rourke believes that the shortcomings of the past years can be rectified now. Dozens of candidates emerging. Texas is a giant state, 31.7 million people. Second after California, 20 TV markets, 2 of the nation's 6 largest, make it impossible for most candidates to saturate voters with ads, like in Iowa or Alaska. Crockett is a star on cable news. Is she? And Crockett also is running against a less widely known person. Millions have come in, and that's all happening right now. So Yep. All right. So we'll keep our eye on that. Back to the cables. Let's see what's cracking here.
43% in Denton County. 40. Look at Hunt County, northeast of Dallas, a little more conservative. Ken Paxton there with 45% of the vote. Ken Paxton also leading in Kaufman County, next to Dallas, 45% of the vote. And just south of Dallas, Ellis County, dead heat. 40%, 40% between these two guys, only 43% of the vote in. But take a look here. Wesley Hunt's got 15%. So that's where he's hanging around in the low to mid single digits.
And that is a recipe for a runoff.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Lawrence O'Donnell and Simone Sanders-Townsend joining us. Both good to have you both here for the first time tonight. Lawrence, what are you watching for and what's your reaction to what you've seen thus far?
What I'm struck.
Little irritated that Fox isn't even covering it. They are covering the war, which I think is their highest priority. Make sure everybody's on board with that, rather than actually cover some domestic policy. And Bill Malugin's on over there. CNN's not covering it either. They've got the same thing to do. Go to their website for election results on a big night like tonight. But all right, so we'll keep our eye on it. I was trying to find some other potential feeds that might be live that are covering some of the election stuff. Let's check this out. See if we have anything else cooking. So yes, we have live campaign footage, and C-SPAN is also on it. So here is outside various locations. This is interesting. Outside of various watch parties. Crockett campaign rally is right there. Texas Tough. Crook. Oh, she's covering the et. That's hilarious. So the Croc, I guess it kind of looks like Crook right there. But Texas Tough Croc, which is how we call her, Crockett full of. Then line still outside McAllen, Texas. Whatley for U.S. Senate has something. There's another event over here. Can't really. Oh, it's Roy Cooper's event in North Carolina. All happening now. And that's that one. Let's check.
National Democrats have essentially adopted a wait and see.
CNN has some reporting. Next polls close in 3 minutes.
And if and when it becomes clear who the Republican nominee is, they might reevaluate. But for now, the price tag that's associated with Texas, let alone the historical headwinds, Democrats, again, haven't won a statewide race in the Lone Star State since Ann Richards in 1990, whereas you've got races in Alaska and Ohio, two states where Democrats have won statewide in the last couple of years, that are more attractive, less expensive, and with more certainty about who the nominee will be.
Are the parties playing across the lines? In other words, are the Republicans trying to boost Jasmine Crockett, and are the Democrats trying to boost Ken Paxton?
You know, Texas is a state with open primaries. It is one of the places where you can do that kind of thing. We hear that talk every now and then, but I think when both parties have competitive primaries, that's a lot less common, less expected. And certainly I think Democrats this time around feel very compelled to vote in the Democratic primary. They have two very, two candidates who are running very formidable races and expected to, be very
look at those
competitive tonight.
numbers.
On the Republican side, very much the same thing. And so I think, ultimately it comes down to where do independents fall. If independents choose to weigh in on these primaries, I think they're probably more used to voting on the Republican side just because Republican primaries have historically proven to be more decisive in terms of electing the ultimate nominee. So I think that's a little bit, tends to be a little bit overblown. But, you can do it. It is possible.
This is the Texas Tribune. Kamala Harris makes last-minute pitch for Jasmine Crockett with robocall. She was able to secure this endorsement. Did it come soon enough?
Potentially. I mean, it's, it came in the last week. I think a lot of voters still are, went to the polls today. And I think Kamala Harris, I guess the real question is just how much sway does Kamala Harris still have in the Democratic Party? I mean, Jasmine Crockett was already expected to do very well with African-American voters, African-American women in particular. My expectation would be if Kamala Harris made an endorsement that she would probably be the most impactful among that demographic. So I don't know just how much Kamala Harris adds to the equation, but certainly Jasmine Crockett, that's it's a big coup.
We'll go to Reese, who's in Columbia, Missouri, independent. Thanks for joining us on this prime.
All right, so we got a clip here of Crockett, who's already complaining about, I think, a rigged election. And we had the numbers. I just pulled those up too. So Talarico is looking like he's way ahead. You can see the votes here. We're at 17% in across the state of Texas. Polls closed 9 p.m. Eastern time across the board. Talarico up 208,000 to Crockett's 193,000, 51 to 47. And the numbers are coming in across the board now. So Crockett's up in the green. Talarico's winning in the purples. And then Hassan is going to be in the blues, it looks like. Although those colors are all kind of very similar. So that's the breakdown on the map, but you can just see the numbers are what we see right there, which is probably contributory to the shifts in the markets right there. Look at that. Talarico up at 92.5%, maybe even higher than that. 98% is where he's at. So Crockett is crashing. No, Jasmine, no. Kamala's robocalls apparently didn't help. And here was a clip over from MS Now that had Crockett very upset. Here is what this one sounded like.
Cast their vote. We should all be standing together. Democrats, Republicans, and we should all be raising hell. But unfortunately, this was always the plan.
Did she just say raising hell? That's a little too close to fight like hell. So maybe she'll be indicted by Jack Smith.
And so I am grateful for this court order. And as Congressman Allred has already stated, we encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. We cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded, because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote, stand in line, wait in line, and if it means that I gotta come out there with you to wait with you, I will do that.
Congresswoman Jasmine.
All right, so Jasmine, I guess, is fighting like hell now. And maybe will be encouraging an insurrection. Maybe she'll indict herself and go to jail for that one. So she's losing, and looks like she's probably going to continue to lose. We still don't have polls coming in on the Herrera race, waiting for that one. Looks like we have no votes yet on that one. And here are some others. We've got Cornyn versus Paxton. And let me grab this one for us here. Looks like Cornyn is doing better than expected. We got 23% of the vote in, and Cornyn is on top. 44 to 38. 44.96, 222,000 votes to 192. Cornyn on top of Paxton by a number of percentage points right there. 6 maybe. And results are still coming in. Looks like a lot of these other locations will come in later after the polls close in those regions. Still nothing being reported out of these black counties. But Cornyn's maybe overperforming. Let's see what the Kalshi market says on that one. Over here. Paxton still looking good. Cornyn up and down. Cornyn had a big up and then he's back down again, even though he's in the lead. Probably expecting a bunch of additional votes to come in for Paxton, but that's a big one. Let's zoom out on this puppy. What's going on over here? Here we go. All right, so those are the numbers. Wesley Hunt, 64,000 votes. An aggregate of the markets are showing that Paxton looks like he's going to win that one. And we got some analysis now. CNN's on it. Let's check out what they have to say about all this.
Here, but just the fact that we're talking about this, right, tells you something. John Cornyn is a long-time Senate incumbent Republican from the state of Texas, and yet he faces a big primary challenge this year from the MAGA conservative Ken Paxton. Now, the president has not endorsed in this race. He says he likes all of the candidates. Congressman Wesley Hunt is running as well. We're very early on in the vote count. You see Senator Cornyn ahead a bit there by 21,000 votes. We just got our first votes in Dallas County. That's the second largest in the state, and you see that Senator Cornyn is leading there. If he key is to win this primary, you have to get 50% plus one, or else we have a runoff down the road a little bit between the two top candidates. This is what Senator Cornyn would have to do. Think of this as establishment versus Trump, if you will. We've talked about this for years. Establishment Republicans like Cornyn, in a primary, he has to win in the urban areas where you have the suburbs, the more affluent, college-educated Republicans, not so Trumpy Republicans. They might vote for Trump, but they're not so Trumpy. And look for Paxton when we get out here in all these rural counties to run it up like Trump does. So we're going to watch this one as it plays out on the Republican side. Again, a competitive Republican primary involving an incumbent who was in the Senate leadership is a big deal. It tells you about tension within the Republican family. Now, the question, as you mentioned, is this the year? How many years have we said might Texas finally go blue, at least for a cycle? You have two prominent Democrats running here. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, she's ahead at the moment, just shy of 52% of the vote. State Senator, seminarian James Talarico is running there. These are both progressive candidates. A lot of people want to cast this, Anderson, as sort of the liberal versus moderate. That's not really fair. Their personalities are very different. How they sell themselves are very different, but their approaches are pretty similar, left of center there. And again, none of the urban areas here. We had some Republican votes in Dallas. We have nothing from Dallas County when it comes to the Democrats. Harris County is Houston. That's number one. Dallas County, Dallas obviously number two. Then you go over here. We do have some. Tarrant County is number three in terms of size. That's Fort Worth. You see Congresswoman Crockett ahead a bit there. And then you're talking about the San Antonio area, the Austin area, but they're just starting to sprinkle in. We're going to be at this for quite some time. But you make the point, will Texas be competitive in November? If you and I are talking about Texas on election night come November, that tells you Trump and Republicans are having a very, very, very bad year. If red Texas is in play come November, that's bad news for the White House.
Yeah, John, thanks very much. We're going to check back in with John throughout this hour. Right now, I want to go to CNN's Jeff Zeleny. He is in Austin at the campaign headquarters of the Democratic Senate candidate, James Talarico. So what's the latest there? What are you hearing from voters?
Well, Anderson, one of the reasons that no votes are in Dallas County yet, the voting has been extended there for 2 extra hours. So that is something that has thrown a bit of a curveball into the late stages of this race. There was some confusion over where voters were supposed to show up and vote today. They did a precinct level voting as opposed to just showing up to a wider voting area that everyone could vote at. So all eyes of both candidates are on that. But the bigger question here, Anderson, hanging over this race is what type of fighters are Democrats looking for? What type of resistance are Democrats trying to build? Jasmine Crockett, of course, a member of Congress from the Dallas area, she portrays herself as the strongest fighter of all, taking it to the president and Republicans. James Talarico, a state representative from the Austin area, he casts himself as a fighter, yes, but in a softer mold. He talks about love over hate. He is trying to build the party through Democrats, yes, also some moderates and even some disillusioned Republicans. So, Anderson, for all the voters we've talked to here, as we spent quite a bit of time here in Texas, I'm thinking to a man from Houston we met yesterday. He 3 times voted for Donald Trump. He went to see James Talarico and said he's voting for him because he said he believes it's time for a change. How many voters are like that? We shall see, but that's one piece of anecdotal evidence out there that James Talarico is building and expanding the party. Of course, Jasmine Crockett is trying to fire up the Democratic base. Anderson?
All right, Jeff, thanks for that. I want to go to Dallas and the campaign headquarters. The Republican candidate Ken Paxton, who's trying to unseat the longtime incumbent Senator John Cornyn. CNN's Arlette Saenz is there. What's the latest there, and what are you hearing from voters?
Well, Anderson, voters here are gathering as they hope that the state's Attorney General, Ken Paxton, will be the eventual GOP nominee. Paxton is posing a very real political threat to Senator John Cornyn, who is in one of the toughest political battles of his longtime career in Washington. Paxton and his allies have argued that Cornyn is not conservative enough, that he is not closely aligned with President Trump. But Cornyn has tried to push back on that, and he has also tried to argue that some of the past controversies surrounding the state's attorney general, including on legal levels and personal levels, that would be detrimental to Republicans' ability to win here in Texas in November, not just in that U.S. Senate seat, but also in down ballot races. Now, in speaking to operatives with both the Cornyn and Paxton camps tonight, they are anticipating that this contest will head into a late May runoff because it is a crowded 3-way field that also includes Congressman Wesley Hunt 50%. These campaigns are expecting that they may not reach that 50% threshold to avoid the runoff. And this has already been an incredibly expensive race, with it expected to bring in even more and more money in the weeks to come if this does, in fact, extend to that runoff.
All right, Arlette Saenz, thanks very much. We'll continue to check in with you. We're going to get some perspective from our political panel next. We'll be right back.
All right, so Chip Roy is getting blown out right now and not looking good. Mays Middleton looks like he is winning pretty handily, and you can see the polls on this puppy flipped on the Kalshi markets. This is wild. Let me grab this one. Look at this right here. See it? Rough for Chip. He was at 68% like an hour ago. And now he's at 15%. Those flipped. Yikes. Not good for Chip Roy. And let's take a look at the actual reporting on this one. Texas AG. Chip Roy, like half, 45 to 26. Over 100,000 votes difference, 26% in. Bunch of stuff unreported on this one. So that could, of course, shift, but maybe not. And Middleton is just beating him in every one of these districts, basically. Chip Roy won in Hayes County, Kendall County, Bandera County. That's interesting. I don't know much about this guy, Middleton. But yeah, so that's rough for his campaign. And I think, is he leaving Congress in order to do this? Pretty sure that's what we just read. Paxton still looking good, even though Cornyn is up in the actual numbers, which we saw right here. So Cornyn's up 44 to 38, according to Decision Desk, 30% reporting in. Not a big margin, 34,000 votes. Cornyn on top, but a lot of the rural places have not come in yet. And these looks like they're still maybe on Mountain Time, my time. So they haven't closed yet. But that one just closed. Jefferson County, Cornyn on top. Paxton's all in the yellows. Bunch of votes in Dallas. Let's see. And this website is like difficult to navigate. All right. Once you start zooming in, it gets a little difficult. All right, so those are the numbers. And it looks like Paxton will probably clean up on the rural votes coming in. Meanwhile, Talarico hanging at like 99%. Jasmine, no. Don't do it. Anyways, Herrera, still waiting for him. Don't have any numbers on that, but looks like he's hopefully going to win that one, which will be good. But what else is happening? All right, so C-SPAN. There's the Crockett full of rally. Some ladies talking on Fox 4 over there. Roy Cooper, Whatley for the Senate. Still voting out there in McAllen, Texas. And let's see what else is happening here on C-SPAN.
A lot of money and getting some on candidate.
Back to Texas. Ben is joining us from there on our line.
Hey, shout out to Ben in Texas, man. Nice. We got breaking news on MS Now saying Michael Whatley, projected to win the GOP North Carolina Senate primary, which is over here. Let's go over to North Carolina. See what these numbers look like. So Democrat Roy Cooper, he's winning. They've already called that for him. And he'll be formidable because he's been around forever. We check the Republican race, Michael Whatley. And let's just look at the vote numbers here. So Mike Whatley is Republican in North Carolina. He's got 164,000 votes at the moment with 39% reporting. Both of those are called, so that's pretty much done. But 164,000. What's the total number of votes? Can't really see that. But okay, he got 164,000. What did the Democrat get? 270,000. Oh, gosh. That's not good. So a lot more. And if you add up all of them, so let's say all of the other Republicans vote. All right, let's just do this. Let's just do a little vote total action. We'll copy all that. We're going to ask AI to add those up. What is the vote total? Is that on the screen somewhere? Okay, let's see what the total number of votes are. 173,000. It's like 100,000 more votes on the other one. Vote totals here. No, add it up. Add up the total. What is the total number? Somebody can probably do the math in their head. All right, it's figuring it out. Gemini is not recommended for this task. Okay, so the total is 270,000. So it's actually more or less the same. So 174 plus 44 plus 14 plus 14 plus 10 plus 6 plus maybe 62. I don't think I copied that one exactly right. But Gemini is saying that's 270,000 votes. So actually, that's pretty dang close, actually, if you compare and contrast. He's at 281,000. You add those in. So Democrats, in terms of raw vote totals, are edging Republicans in North Carolina. Let's take a look at the, that's for the Senate race. Yeah, and in the House, these people, I don't think are major candidates that we've been paying too much attention to, but they're working it out in North Carolina. And let's go back to the cables to see what they've got here for us.
Harris County, 53-45. That's the largest vote center there. So a long way to go. It's just great to be back counting votes in first primary night, Anderson. If this is going to be a big monumental midterm year.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating night. Dan, I mean, both primary races in Texas are kind of indications of for both parties, really, of a path forward.
Yeah, no question. And look, this traditionally is not a state where we look to see a possible general election match.
All right, we don't need to listen to her. So, James Talarico, new numbers here. Let's see what we've got. He's up 53-45, 800,000 votes in total for Democrats on that race. Let's check out the Senate. So 826,000 total votes for Democrats right now. Let's check the Senate. The heck is going on? 676,000 for Republicans. This is not good, actually. We need just more raw votes. Let's say everybody who voted red is 676,000. Everybody who voted left is 826,000. Both 35.3% reporting in. Actually, the Democrats have more votes in. So, okay, that's okay. All right. They're at 35% on this page, whereas the Republicans are at 31% on this page. So maybe those numbers will even out as the night continues. Now, AG race, we've got, that was Texas AG. For the Republicans, there's Chip Roy, still down. 26-45. Mays Middleton, 26% coming in on that. Hey, it's Scott Jennings over on CNN.
The performative nature of it. It's the attitude. It's the way you carry yourself in the new Donald Trump era. Cornyn sort of predates that era. And so some of it is stylistic, and Paxton obviously thinks he has energy that better matches the current iteration of the base of the Republican Party. But Cornyn's been around a long time. He's been a very reliable and conservative Republican, even if rhetorically or performatively he doesn't do the same things that Paxton does. Interestingly, there's a third person, Wesley Hunt, who's a congressman. He's going to get some votes. That's going to keep this probably in runoff territory, and you're talking about money. So if Cornyn and Paxton do go to a runoff, there'll be a huge amount of money. But I'll tell you, that's where Donald Trump comes into play. He did not choose a candidate in this primary yet. He has relationships with all three. But if you get to a runoff, both Paxton and Cornyn will be making an argument to the president, hey, let's just settle this now, and you tell the people in Texas who you want. Cornyn would say, I'm more electable statewide. Paxton would say, I'm a more reliable ally, and we'll have to see where the president goes. There are some Republicans who believe that Paxton would be a harder sell statewide in a tough midterm year. And that would be an argument that Cornyn would make to say, hey, we don't have the money to do this. You don't have $100 million to spend here in Texas, and that's why you should endorse me. But a lot of it will fall on President Trump's shoulders if he chooses to get in.
Van, what do you think on the Democratic side?
Well, look, Jasmine Crockett has a different theory of politics. The policy stuff is pretty much the same, but her view is if you put somebody up who's a fighter, who's electric, that people who don't vote will come out. You can change the map, you can change the math with a different style of politics. Tonight, we'll see if she's correct. If she's correct, that should first show itself inside our own party. And if she pulls this off tonight, then it's a signal that maybe there's some new wisdom emerging from the grassroots that a different style of politics can change the math and change the map. But I think most people would usually go with someone like Talarico because they think he can pull in the moderates, he can pull in even some Republicans, as we saw tonight. This is up to the voters. We can sit up here all night long and talk. We will see what the grassroots thinks is the best way to take on Donald Trump, but don't think that Jasmine Crockett is just an internet sensation. She is that, but she also is trying to see if she can change the turnout ratio of unlikely voters. There is a strategy here.
For people who are sick of kind of the tone of politics today.
Well, then Talarico's your guy.
That would be the argument for that.
I mean, if you want somebody who's going to go toe to toe with the people who jump on TV and do like Jasmine's your person, but some people are tired of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No question about that. I thought you were going in a different direction with that question, which is on the Republican side, because Paxton, I mean, you were talking about how it's gotten ugly. It has gotten really ugly on the Republican side. And it is in large part because Cornyn is jumping on a lot of issues that Paxton has had. Never mind
he's got
personal
a lot of
issues.
personal baggage.
Well, look, he ran an ad, John Cornyn, at the end of this primary that when I first saw it, it like melted my eyebrows off. I've never seen anything like this before. And I mean, it touched a lot of issues. And even if you do see things that incendiary, it's usually an outside group. No, this was incendiary, and I'm John Cornyn, and I approve this message. It was wild. And so, to your point, it has gotten a little chippy down in Texas. There's no love lost between these campaigns.
Why do you think the president hasn't weighed in?
He
just wants to see where the wind is blowing?
Well, I think in the short term, meaning up through the primary, John Cornyn is a longtime senator. As you said, Scott, yes, the two of them are very different stylistically, but Cornyn has voted with the president consistently. And Paxton has been on the front lines for the president. I mean, he was there with the president after January 6th. He was suing people left and right.
He went to court in the courtroom.
Exactly. Suing people left and right after Joe Biden took over.
Yeah.
So
we would love to go back.
And Wesley Hunt, the third person, he's been a big. So Trump had legitimately three allies. It was a tough choice.
We're going to take a quick break. Back with everyone as the vote in Texas continues.
Without you. And I want to thank everybody who ran in this primary. It takes serious courage and passion to step up and get involved and run for office and serve. And I look forward to working with all of you during this crucial campaign for our state and country. Now, I also want to take a moment to share my deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of our military members who were killed in the Iran war.
Prayers up.
Our brave men and women in uniform put their lives on the line to keep our country safe. And I am deeply grateful to them and their families. So, guys, we know we've got our work here, and it's just beginning. We have a long way to go until November. Hey, but if you want change in Washington, do you? Yeah! This campaign is for you.
All right, so he sounds like a cartoon character or something like that. Like he's talking to like 8-year-olds. Do you guys want to go to the playground? Yeah, we do. It's recess time. All right, okay. So anyways, here's who this dude is. He is a Democrat, Democratic Party, governor of North Carolina, married to somebody called Kristen Cooper. He's got 2 parents, 3 kids, University of North Carolina, and he has now won. He was the governor, and he'll be running for Senate against the Republican, who will probably come out with a victory speech here in a moment. We'll, of course, wait and see. Meanwhile, Chip Roy still struggling on this one, 45 to 26 for the AG slot. Ken Paxton will be vacating that. And it's looking like he is still kind of hovering right around 23%, which is very interesting because it's like you gave up your congressional seat in order to go run for this, and now you're going to lose it. Yikes. We got Ken Paxton still up at 78. I saw some great comments in the chat that we should see a red wave basically as soon as the clock strikes 9 o'clock. The other polls will close out in some of the other counties there in Texas. Oh, Crockett! No! No, Jasmine, say it ain't so, Jasmine. 1%, Jasmine Crockett. Oh, man. That's a bummer. So James Talarico is going to win that one. And that will be, looks like, pretty well called. Let me see. Do I got that one queued up? Let's go to Talarico. 39% in on the votes. Still a long way to go on this one. 40% in. Jasmine's not down that much. I mean, come on. 489,000 to 414,000. Jasmine needs a surge. She needs an El Paso surge. Come on, El Paso. Deliver it for Jasmine. But as it stands, looks like the markets are seeing something that the polls are not, or the results are not showing exactly. And so, Jasmine, it may be the end of Jasmine. Moment of silence for Jasmine. Yeah, it's like a flat line. Beep, beep, beep. Jasmine. Oh, no. All right, so she'll lose. I don't think there's anything else for her to do after that's over. Brandon Herrera, don't have any updates on him yet. Paxton's looking good. Chip Roy struggling. Who else are we following? Let's see. Yeah, that's the Chip Roy race. We've got C-SPAN. Let's see what they're up to right now.
Is doing very well in some of those more sparsely populated rural counties up in North Texas. You know, you're looking at the center of the state and seeing a lot of Talarico vote out there that is helping outweigh for now, you know, Jasmine Crockett's strength in Houston and what we know is coming in Dallas County at some point in the night.
Yeah, and we're just a few minutes away here from 9 p.m. on the East Coast.
2 minutes.
And Texas polls continue to close. As we've been talking about, there is a delay in some of the counties. And so we were expecting that all polls will have been closed at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's not the case. We will be waiting until 10 p.m. Eastern time to get polls closed in Dallas County and see where the results, the votes go in those precincts. Another race that we're watching tonight in Texas is the 18th Congressional District with 68% of the vote in. Matthew Klein, let's talk about these two candidates.
Yeah, Christian Menefee, Al Green. This is a member-on-member race. Al Green is, I believe, 78 years old. He has been in the U.S. House since 2005. Christian Menefee is 40, 41, something like that. And he's been in the House for about 3
Al
weeks.
Green!
And so you see this very awkward clash. That is largely a result of redistricting. Al Green currently represents the 9th District. That has been reworked.
Oh, man, that sign didn't help him all that much, huh?
This primary has been quite possibly the best distillation of the Democratic Party's debate over age. The 18th District, formerly represented by Sheila Jackson Lee, she died in office, succeeded by her daughter, and then Sylvester Turner, who died as well in office at the age of 70. So age is clearly on the minds of voters in downtown Houston who have been deprived of representation for quite a while in the U.S. Congress. Greg Abbott very notably chose to hold this seat open as long as he possibly could before it gets filled to help Republicans as they have a very narrow majority. Christian Menefee really running on a platform of generational change. Al Green is a progressive fighter. We know this. We stood up at the State of the Union address last year, stood up again this year, and still, he has a base of support. But I think a lot of voters in Texas, and specifically in this area, a lot of Democrats really ready to turn the page. This is a warning sign for older incumbents all around the country.
Good,
Abby
get out.
Livingston, I want to get your take on this race.
I agree mostly with that, but I will just say Congressman Al Green has just had the absolute worst luck of the cycle for an incumbent. Between the redistricting, the fact that Christian Menefee has basically been running for Congress full scale for the last year because the seat was kept open for a very long time by Greg Abbott to make the margins easier on Speaker Mike Johnson. And so this is just a perfect storm for a congressman. He's also had crypto come in and spend for Christian Menefee, not against Al Green, but the advertising was generational change. And so he's also a financial services member. And so he's the congressperson from Texas I've been most closely watching who might not make it to the runoff. And I think that Congresswoman Valerie Foushee, and I hope I'm saying her name correctly, in North Carolina.
You are.
Might be a more if she is in trouble and she's losing, I think older House members who have not been fundraising, who've not been saving, preparing for this election, I think she is the bigger warning signal to older members. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is very unusual. And this is something we've been seeing coming. And I think you can draw it back directly to Joe Biden staying in the 2024 race too long, and voters are saying it's time for change.
All right, polls have closed across Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina. It's primary night on C-SPAN. We are kicking off 2026 election season tonight with these three states: Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas. The battle for Congress and who controls it begins tonight.
Yeah. All right, so we're covering it too. Thank you, C-SPAN, for helping us carry it over. Now, here we got more from the Brandon Herrera race. I think I had that one queued up at some point. I don't know what I did with it. Maybe it's over here. But not that one. Not that one. This one. Gonzalez. Okay, so super small numbers right here. But this is Texas House seat 23. Gonzalez, of course, the guy who allegedly was having an affair with somebody who burned herself alive and then eliminated herself. Polls now closing across West Texas. Terrell County has Herrera up on top, 54-29. Gonzalez up 590-360. And we're going to keep our eye on that one for sure. Now that those numbers are coming in, let's check the market, see if they're moving at all. Crockett still flatlined out. 99% for Talarico. Paxton down to 70. Wow, okay, so a little bit of a shift there. Cornyn's up to 30%, still a long shot. Chip Roy still struggling. And Brandon Herrera, 97% up here. Look at that. It says Tony, though. Is it 13%? Doesn't make any sense. So 90 and like 12, 97, 13. All happening. And polls are closing. Here is what C-SPAN has for us, or CNN, rather.
County in the state. Talarico, again, a state senator. He goes to work in Austin every day. He's running comfortably ahead there. He'll be happy with that. The Democratic establishment county, if you will, the government establishment county. But we're still waiting on Bexar County, that's San Antonio, still waiting on Dallas County there. So a long way to go in terms of the big urban centers. But if you look at these rural counties up here, the smaller rural counties, that's where Talarico has built his early lead. The question is, Caitlin, does it hold up when we get more votes in the urban centers? A very closely competitive race here. These are two left-of-center candidates. They're not really different when it comes to an issues perspective, only modestly, but they're very different in terms of their stylistic approach to politics. So we'll see who the Democrats decide to send up in November. And then the question is, who would that Democrat be running against? John Cornyn, longtime establishment Texas Republican, who has become more Trumpy because he's had to here in Washington. He's the incumbent and he's ahead at the moment, but three candidates in this race. If you don't get 50 plus one, you have a runoff in May. Ken Paxton, the state attorney general, a cloud of ethics around him for years, and yet he's a big mega favorite. He's an election denier like Donald Trump, has helped President Trump with a whole bunch of lawsuits on big issues. yet Trump has not endorsed in this race. So where are we? 44% to 39%. Congressman Wesley Hunt, again a Trump ally, one of the reasons Trump didn't endorse, 3 people who have been with the president in big fights there, running at about 14%. If you look at it right now, in the major urban area, again, very close. This is actually a bit of a surprise to me. Houston, you have more establishment Republicans, more college-educated Republicans, and Paxton is holding his own against Senator Cornyn at the moment. And you come up to Dallas County and you look here, that's where Cornyn has a bit of a lead. One of the things the Democrats argue, Caitlin, this is what they argue, and remember in past cycles they have said we can make Texas blue, is that some of these voters, your George W. Bush voters, if Paxton is the nominee, might say, can't do that. He's too MAGA, I'll go Democratic. We don't know it'll be Paxton, probably going to have a runoff there, but that's something we'll watch again. Texas in our conversation as we begin the midterm year vote count.
Yeah, White House is watching that one very closely. John King, we're going to be checking in with you a lot this hour, so keep us updated. And also, as we are keeping an eye on Texas, we'll bring you the results there as we learn more, as John King is at the Magic Wall. We're also following that breaking news in the Middle East tonight. CNN's Aaron Burnett is joining me now from Tel Aviv. And Aaron, obviously we've seen all of this happening with the retaliation, ratcheting up.
All right, so more Iran over there. Meanwhile, we've got the race for Crenshaw's seat, which is looking like he's struggling. And here is this one. 31% of the vote in for Crenshaw. And he's currently down pretty significantly. Let's get over here. Crenshaw. Toth up. Although these are pretty low numbers. 52 over 43. Crenshaw, the current incumbent. And let's take a look at the markets right here. That's interesting. So Crenshaw, wow, that looks interesting. Okay, let me check this one out on Kalshi. See what we've got on this. Looks like Crenshaw is struggling. And boom. Here is the latest from Kalshi. Look at that, man. Another upset. So Steve Toth, wow, look at that. Crosses the line with Crenshaw. Eye Patch McCain might be being thrown out here. Steve Toth now up to 92%. Wow, that's big. Big shift. Wonder what's going to be next for him. We'll obviously keep an eye on these numbers. But the district is here. And 91% in on that one. So he's got a couple of counties in his district, it looks like. Toth is up 52 to 43. Crenshaw, this one not reporting yet. But the markets have flipped aggressively on that, as we see right there. And they've got Toth up at like gonna win, basically. Wow. Look at that. Steve Toth. Let's learn more about this fella, shall we? Steve Toth. Looks like we got some stuff on him. Steve Toth. American businessman. With a cowboy hat, baby. Ordained pastor, politician from the Woodlands. He's a candidate, born and raised in New York. Attended Rochester Bible. Going to be the guy who looks like he's replacing Crenshaw. It's in suburban Montgomery County, centered around the Woodlands. Also part of the Houston metro area, is where he was. That's him speaking at a fundraiser event. See some of his policies. Forest Preservation Act, various appropriations, ban abortions after the detection of a heartbeat, school lunch bill, reducing cannabis possession from Class B to Class C, voted for HB 1823, helped promote dredging efforts in Harris County. What else? He said it's also known as a Second Amendment. This is also known as a Second Amendment sanctuary bill. It would make any attempt to enforce federal gun laws in Texas void if those laws were not a part of Texas law. He was ranked as the 4th most conservative House member in 2021. And he introduced a bill to conduct a forensic audit of 2020, okay? All of the election deniers are winning. And the deep state fraudsters are losing. It's good development the Republican Party needs to be brought on board. And if they're not going to come willingly, we just have to beat them in the elections. Toth during this also talking about some healthcare stuff. Man, guy's got a lot of things going on. And Vulnerable Youth Protection Act. Stop social transitioning of children. Nice. During the 89th session, he also introduced HB 1001, requires the use of paper ballots in all Texas elections, and named the third most conservative member in the legislature. This is a good win. Very nice win. Let's see. 2020. I mean, provided it happens. They've got married Babette. They have resided in Montgomery County since 1997. All right, so Crenshaw. Rough day for Dan. 96% over there. And the county is reporting 31%. It's pretty small numbers on that. Not big margins there. Oh, gosh. Booty is, we're not going to listen to it, but Booty is on CNN. Ugh. He's running for president, trying to be the everyday man. He had a photo out. He's like at a diner somewhere with his beard. He's like, I'm a man now. You're like, all right, there, Booty. Got it. So we've got Crenshaw. Now looks like he might be out. We go back to Talarico. Let's see what we've got. Oh, Herrera's back here. This is the Herrera one. Let's take a look what's going on here. Brandon Herrera, 97%. That one's ebbing and flowing on the poly market right there. But he's still hovering right around 88%. So looking strong. Going to be another good victory on that. We don't need cheating congressmen, okay, who are abusing their staff members. Not appropriate. What's going on over here? Did something flip again? What the heck is going on here? Chip Roy? What is going on these markets, man? Chip Roy's now back on top? What the hell's going on over here? This is wild topsy-turvy night. Chip Roy, according to these numbers, not. So maybe there was something weird going on Kalshi. But Chip Roy in these markets is at 73%. Mays Middleton just dropped down. That's very curious. So we'll see if these numbers close up. Maybe Chip Roy comes back after these new polls close. Very interesting. And here's some more analysis, courtesy of the cables.
That's why, under the Obama administration,
of a House race in particular, CD23 is Tony Gonzalez.
Yes.
Who has an unusual path to tonight.
Yes.
His scandal right now.
Biblical, as you would say.
Biblical, perhaps. What are we seeing on the Republican side in CD23?
I am going to pull that up in a second for you. Come back to me and I'll have it ready and I'll have a whole lot of detail for you.
All right, Tony Gonzalez. The reason I'm asking, some of you may have been following along with this at home, but Tony Gonzalez is an incumbent Republican who is accused of having had an affair with a staffer, a relationship that
Yeah, we got it. So interesting what we're seeing over on the Kalshi markets. Let's share this video. We've got Jasmine Crockett, somebody inside her campaign headquarters, this guy, inside Jasmine Crockett's watch party in Dallas, just posted minutes ago. And do we have volume on this? Somewhere. Have I ever used YouTube before? There it is.
Town Dallas nightclub where Jasmine Crockett will be hosting her watch party. This room will be filled with supporters soon. Right now it is filled with media from all over Texas, really from across the country, because this is a race that has drawn national attention. Now, the Congresswoman, she calls Dallas home currently, but she's really spent a lot of her day, most of her day, in Houston and the surrounding area. That is home to the state's largest county, also to some of the most diverse counties in the country, and of course in the state. But one thing that's really occupied a lot of her attention today, something she's been posting about on social media, and something that she's actually now speaking about in Dallas, just a short distance away, to some of our colleagues in the media, is the issues with voting today in Dallas County. So usually it's a county-wide voting county where you can vote at any location on election day. But this year, you have to vote in your precinct only. That is because the Republicans did not want to do countywide voting this year. Same situation in Williamson County, and it's led to a lot of confusion among voters who go to what would typically be their polling place on election day, only to be turned away and told that they have to go somewhere else. So again, we are here inside the Watch Party location in downtown Dallas, and we will bring you the latest when the Congresswoman arrives and any reaction from however this race turns out coming up throughout the night.
Doesn't look like it's going to be good for her. And she's still saying, stay in line. Don't get out of line. I'm Jasmine. If you're in line, stay in line. You get to vote for me. Jasmine. It's not looking good for her. So let's go back to some of those numbers. And the Chip Roy election is bizarre. But yeah, Jasmine's still flatlined out. 1% along with Colin Allred, who I think, didn't he also run against Ted Cruz? Yeah, pretty sure. All right, meanwhile, Brandon Herrera looking pretty good on this one. Seeing, according to him, looks like 96% that he's going to win. And some other, do we have any other results on this page? Here, let's zoom out on this. There we go. Yeah, man, that is neck and neck. Look at that. 42, Gonzalez is up 1908 to 1898. That is a tight race there. Still a lot to come in. 85% on that one. Herrera on top over here, 53%. 41%. Look at that county. It's like 17 votes total. It's amazing, man. 17 votes total, 41% in. So they might break 50. You never know. Might be 50 total votes coming in out of that county. But shout out to our rural folks voting. We love you. All right, so that is very interesting. Still trying to get our bearings straight on what's going on with Chip Roy. These are the various campaign locations. Talarico's campaign rally, Crockett's campaign rally, Watch Party, Texas Tough. She's going to have to come out and make a bad announcement. Otherwise, don't know what these two bottom ones are. But let's see what else C-SPAN has for us over here, what they're getting into.
Be not completely obsessed with this race.
All right, I want to give an update on the primary race for Republicans in the Senate, Texas Senate race. Senator John Cornyn, the incumbent, now with just a 2.6% lead here. Ken Paxton is closing in with 40% of the vote in. Abby Livingston, what do you make of that?
I mean, it's doing exactly what we've predicted tonight, which is Paxton starting to catch up. I think it is imperative for John Cornyn to keep that lead to make his case to the president for the endorsement. But he's still in it. These numbers, nobody's getting close to 50 at this point. We are 40% of the votes in, so there's still room for a candidate to grow. But this says to me at this point that we are headed for a runoff.
Matthew Klein.
That's right, and I think a lot of Republicans are very frustrated, especially about the fact that this is going to
Wesley
a runoff
Hunt pulling up 13%. That's pretty good.
Joined this field, after both Ken Paxton and John Cornyn had already made their candidacies known, and at this point, I think Wesley Hunt is pretty clearly proving to be certainly one of the main reasons that this looks like it could be going to a runoff. He's taking 13.5%. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of resources and time that's going to have to be taken away from potential opportunities elsewhere on the map for national Republicans.
We're talking a lot, focusing a lot on Texas tonight. Why is that, Matthew Klein?
Well, it's huge. First of all, there are a ton of races in Texas. I mean, we haven't even talked about some of the other primaries on the ballot tonight. Tony Gonzalez in the 23rd district. He has been just mired by scandal in the last couple of weeks related to an extramarital affair he had with the then staffer who later committed suicide. Also, Julie Johnson and Colin Allred, the race that they're experiencing in Dallas County. We don't have any results yet from Dallas County, so we can't say anything about it. But obviously, that's going to be a really interesting one to watch once those results start coming in. Dan Crenshaw potentially losing. Al Green seems like he might be in pretty rough shape. There's just a lot of races to watch tonight, and it's rare that you see all of it happening at one time.
We are, though, we do have primaries, Jacob Rubashkin, in North Carolina, in Arkansas. Let's focus on North Carolina a little bit. What have we learned so far?
Tom Cotton wins in Arkansas.
Well, looking at the House map, in that first congressional district, that eastern North Carolina seat that is going to be so crucial to the House battlefield. Again, Don Davis, the most vulnerable Democratic member of the House running for re-election. And it is looking like Lori Buckhout, who was his 2024 opponent, is in decent shape to...
All right, so yeah, that Chip Roy market looked like it was just some weird spike, like somebody may have bought a bunch of Chip Roy, but looks like it's returned back to normal. And the Chip Roy numbers are back down. So Middleton still ahead on that. And this is the Herrera case, or the Herrera election. And here's more from Middleton and Roy. Yeah, those numbers, well, they're kind of hovering around the same. 43 to 27. This is the Chip Roy race. He's still in number 2 there. 43% reporting in. And the map is starting to fill out. So Chip Roy, not looking good. Crenshaw, same thing. We got 63% reporting on Crenshaw. And he's down 57 to 39. Wow. 63% coming in on that one. And let's see what the markets showed on him. Wow. Look at that inversion, man. Elections, you never know. If you would have bet on Toth, you would have made some good money tonight. He's up at 97%. Crenshaw blown out. Let's see what Crenshaw is saying on this. Over on X. If he's got any updates or any reaction. Yeah, he's losing. Crenshaw's losing. Many people saying we're praying Crenshaw loses over on X. Yeah, Dustin Grage, man, shout out from Minnesota. He said, what if I told you that primary elections matter more than the general election? That's a good point. That's why we're here. It says it's time to send Cornyn, Gonzalez, and Crenshaw into retirement. And, of course, we're waiting on more of that. Anything from Dan? No post recently from Dan. Tomorrow's election day. He said every vote counts 22 hours ago. But not much from him. So he might be being thrown out of Congress. And we remember Crenshaw. Remember when Crenshaw was like screaming about stock trading? Let's find that. Crenshaw stocks. Or stock trading. Yeah, he was very upset about this. Yeah, remember this? People are pretty tired of this crap. These guys get inside information and then they just start getting rich off of it. And he's like whining about it. Why can't we trade stocks illegally with inside information? He's like, what the hell are we supposed to do here? Oh, and he swears in this one. So let's try to avoid that. But content warning from iPatch McCain.
Vote for a ban on Congress members trading stocks?
Yeah, I mean, this is like number 1,000 on my priority list of things to care about. This.
Okay, well, that's great. All right, so you don't care about inside trading of Congress people?
This is one of those stupid
things
been dragged through the mud on. You know how much fuck
I've had in stock market
$20,000, and yet I've been dragged through the mud on this as if like there's some insider trading. I just sent a letter to Fox News, a threatening letter from my lawyers, threatening them with defamation because Jesse Waters had basically insinuated that I was insider trading. Of course, it's not true. We're surprised how much little information we have. This is one of those bills that of course, yeah, people support it. Yeah, sure, okay. Who cares? Because I barely have anything in the market anyway. Are there a couple cases wherein Nancy Pelosi has some very suspicious timing of her trades? Yeah, that has happened. But nobody else can point any other examples out.
Nancy's whole business model is insider trading.
Keep whipping ourselves. How about we don't make any money either? How about just cut our paychecks? We haven't gotten a pay raise since 2008, even a COLA increase. So. Yeah, this is a great idea. Let's make Congress a place where only the millionaires can actually afford to do the job. This is a wonderful idea. Let's just keep doing that. And then some it's always some member, right, who senses the populist energy and then mirrors it. believing that this is what's going to help me connect with the people. Because what do the people want? Well, they want an easy button. All my problems will be solved if there's no stock trading. All my problems will be solved if there's term limits. Yeah, but if you think about any of these things for 5 whole minutes, you might quickly come to a different conclusion.
Okay, well, you don't have to worry about insider trading or stock bans anymore because it looks like you're going to be thrown out of Congress. Steve Toth ahead, and looks like he's almost at 97% in the markets to win that race. So Dan can just go trade whatever he wants now, I guess. You got 57 to 39, 63% reporting. Toth beating Crenshaw in the primary, provided that he, of course, wins the general, but he probably will. Sounds like it's a little bit of a rural area outside of, what is that, Houston? There. Not a ton of votes, so probably pretty conservative if it's a bit more rural. And Crenshaw can just go retire and he can go trade stocks or go make some money or whatever. How are you a congressman and you're not making gobs of money? Just write a book and go shill your book, and then people can buy, 50,000 copies of your book and never read them and throw them in the incinerator and pay you for it or whatever. Right? It's, of course it's all influence, but you can make money without selling books. Start doing what AOC does and posting on Instagram, start posting on YouTube. You've got like limitless media exposure, and he can't make any money without inside trading and stock bans, and he's going to scream at us about that. So, all right, good riddance to him and his ilk. So that's that. All right, anyways. So what else do we got? Let's see. Roy Cooper is on MS Now. We don't care about that. What else do we care about? Let's take a look at the Brandon Herrera race and see where he's at. Ooh, that's getting a little tight over there. So on the markets coming down and on the votes, let's take a look. Herrera, where was the numbers? Up here. Yes. Okay, so Herrera. Gonzalez is still up, man. Small numbers. Tony Gonzalez, 12,700 to 11,000 total votes, 45 to 39, 61% in. So we need those numbers to tighten up big time. This one's not looking so hot right now with 61% in. Still got some of these counties with 0 reporting thus far. So maybe El Paso. What's El Paso going to do when they come in? Anybody from El Paso? I've never been to El Paso. But that county has not voted yet. Hudspeth, Culberson, Presidio, Brewster. Still waiting on those. And we'll get some updates over there. Meanwhile, we've got some other campaign events that looks like they're brewing. Let's go live over here. Anything changing? Talarico's got MS Now live. Crockett, nothing's over there. All right. So carrying on. Let's see what is happening here.
Now, but when you
nominee are probably going to deploy to fundraise.
Look at that. It's tight.
This is a pretty
Trumpy
district. It's pretty Republican.
Let's go, Brandon.
But in a year where a wave could materialize,
it's different. It means something different now.
Could put this on the map. And again,
Abby Livingston, we should explain those candidate problems just for people who may have not been paying attention.
Well, he has been accused of having an affair with a staffer, and then she died by suicide on camera. And it is
the incumbent, Tony Gonzalez.
The incumbent, Tony Gonzalez. This has been simmering and bubbling under the surface, and it exploded in the last couple of weeks, which I think surprised no one. These sorts of stories tend to surface right before election time. And so he has been a phenomenal campaigner. He's been, this was a district that was a district that flipped back and forth between the parties, and he got a pretty solid hold on it, and then they redrew it to be safer. He was sort of the model Texas Republican in running campaigns and raising money, and then this has just thrown a wrench into it. Again, this is a hard district, but like the John Cornyn race, Democrats can win even if they lose here if they manage to put this into play enough that Republicans have to spend money in Southwest Texas that they would prefer to spend in other races to protect other incumbents.
Jacob Rubashkin, without the headlines about this staffer and the alleged affair, would this still be a close contest?
Brandon Herrera nearly beat Tony Gonzalez 2 years ago. He only lost in the runoff by a couple hundred votes. So I think the answer is an emphatic yes. Tony Gonzalez has base problems. Brandon Herrera has the profile that has galvanized and motivated a lot of the Republican base in this part of the state. So heading into this contest, this rematch, Tony Gonzalez did not have very much room to spare at all. He escaped by the skin of his teeth in 2024. He did so with a mountain of help from outside groups, Republican national groups in D.C. and in Texas that were interested in keeping him there. As Abby said, he's an overperformer. He has put a lock on this one-time swing district. Nobody expected him to win back in 2020. It was an upset win, and in one cycle, he, as well as Trump and the Republican Party, put a lock on this district. And Brandon Herrera has, as we've all said here, a long history of making all sorts of offensive and controversial remarks on his YouTube channel.
So
insensitive
what?
Comments about Donald Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump, that
that doesn't
used in
disqualify
TV ads
you
last
from
cycle
running
against him. So clearly a headache for Republicans. Regardless of who is the nominee here, whether it's Congressman Gonzalez or whether it's Brandon Herrera, Republicans are fortunate that Democrats really don't have a top-tier candidate waiting in the wings to take on whichever of them emerges from this primary. The Democratic bench in this part of the state is fairly weak. And the last couple of years have done a real number on them. And so whoever emerges from the Democratic Party primary will be broke, will be unknown, and will be staring down some stiff political headwinds at the top of the ticket, given this district's proclivities in recent years. They will have an opportunity, though, because of who the Republican opponent will be to make this race interesting.
All right, we are in the bottom of the hour, and it is campaign 2026 primary right here on C-SPAN. We're giving you every moment, every result, and every speech.
Shout out to C-SPAN. Anyways, the president is also celebrating right now. You can see a bunch of posts here. Trump unloading, talking about epic fury. If you're stuck over there, call the State Department and they'll get you out. But he's also celebrating Brandon Gill. Big victory. Shout out to Brandon Gill. He's a solid congressman. We need more like that. Roger Williams. Congratulations. Beth Van Dunn. Big win. Amazing. Trevor Neals. Hey, we know that guy. Shout out to him. Pete Sessions. He's winning out of Texas. Monica De La Cruz. Congratulations to her. Ronnie Jackson. He wins. We know him. The doctor, right? Ronnie Jackson wins. Craig Goldman. Shout out. We've got August Pfluger. Shout out to August Pfluger. Lance Gooden in the House also wins the primary, according to the president. Pat Fallon. Congratulations to Pat. Keith Self handled it. Nathaniel Moran wins the House. Dustin Burrow wins. Dan Patrick wins. And what race was that? Lieutenant Governor. Greg Abbott wins. Going to be governor again. Tim Moore. We got Rick Crawford. Steve Womack. Man, there's a lot of names on here. Sarah Huckabee Sanders wins in Arkansas. So she'll be back. It's Van Dyne. Sorry about that. Tom Cotton. He wins. That photo looks like... Was that his high school photo? I think there's a newer photo of Tom. But Trump will attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Oh, that's an interesting and a stunning twist. That is a little stunning. But Trump is funnier than they are. So why wouldn't he go? Brad Knott, what's up, Brad, won. Chuck Edwards won. We've got Pat Harrigan in North Carolina. Richard Hudson, North Carolina. Mark Harris. David Rouser. Addison McDowell. Virginia Fox. Man, shout out to Virginia. We got Greg Murphy win. Michael Whatley wins. That's North Carolina governor, senator from North Carolina against the governor called Roy Cooper. It's going to be a big race. Brian Armstrong talking about crypto. Shout out. And then more on Coinbase. All right, so I think that's about it from the president celebrating some nice victories over on Truth Social. And let's take a look. Let's do a quick roundup. So Talarico's on top of Jasmine Crockett, and he's winning the election on that one. Herrera still winning on the markets. Let's take a look at the polls, see what the numbers show. Very tight, 61% in on that last updated just now, actually. No, 10 minutes ago. Let's refresh this. See what's going on over here. All right, it's not loading. So we'll reopen that one coming up. Let's see what's happening here on CNN. Hop over to Texas. Take a look at some of these races. All right, Talarico on top. Texas is looking like it's getting pretty much closed out. Jasmine Crockett is losing. On the Republican side, Cornyn still on top, man. 42.8%. Texas is looking pretty red, meaning the counties are coming in. Ken Paxton, it's going to be a runoff. I mean, just look at the numbers. That's crazy. Wesley Hunt picked up 13%. Wow. So that's interesting. And Wesley Hunt, that might actually help John Cornyn, right? Like if Wesley didn't run and Ken Paxton picks up maybe his votes, Cornyn loses and doesn't have a runoff opportunity, but now he does. So it'll be Cornyn versus Paxton when that one's closed out. What is 46% reporting in? Maybe that swings when we get some of these more rural counties popping in. Still a lot of counties that have not reported anything yet. So that's there. Over to the House. Keith's Toth. It looks like they've declared the winner on that one. I do believe. No, it's just a key race. So they haven't called that one yet. But Toth is ahead of Crenshaw. 23,000 raw votes over to 16,000 raw votes. 58% in. So Crenshaw may be losing that one. Over half the votes in. He's down pretty significantly. If the trend holds, it's probably the end of the game for him. And let's take a look at some other races. And where was that Democrat Al Green race? Let's see. Do we have that? Green. There. No. Only one of those. Lots of votes over there. All right, we'll find that one. But meanwhile, yeah, CNN's talking about probably a runoff on the Cornyn race. Let's check that out.
At the party, and when you have a runoff, that's going to even come close. That's going to come further out into the front of this campaign, and that'll be a problem, I think, especially when this is going to be an election. If we do have to go up against somebody like Talarico in a general election, it's going to still be fought in the big middle, and you don't want to have that type of fight split the party. So, an endorsement from Donald Trump for one of those candidates obviously would make a huge deal and actually could save a lot of money.
Yeah, I talked to someone in the White House who said basically all three camps were saying, here's our polling. We're the best position to beat the Democrat in this race. That is still the key question in terms of which Democrat it is that is going to be going up against a Ken Paxton or a John Cornyn or whatever this looks like.
But that feels like vintage Trump. Let's wait it out until there's a runoff and then go in and be the kingmaker and try to, be the one to sprinkle the magic fairy dust on the Republican primary. That's how he likes to do it.
I mean,
she could use a little fairy dust sprinkled on her. Here is more on the Al Green race. He's losing. Christian Menefee looks like he's up ahead. We got over 95% of the vote in, and Al Green and his little sign, black people are not apes. Thank you, Al. We know that. 48% to 43%. They haven't called that one yet, but over 95% of the vote is in on that. And that's good. That's pretty fun. So Al Green, good riddance to him too in the Senate or in the House.
Cameron County, 92% Latino, back to the Democratic bucket. and John King was just talking about, why are we talking about Texas in the first place? The crazy thing about it is, if you're looking at the early vote, Democrats are, I believe, outpacing Republicans. They did 130% more than their 22 vote total, while Republicans are at 60% of their vote total in 2022. So there is a lot of momentum in Texas right now, and this is why both sides are nervous.
Although, yes, and I'd be curious to see how the primary is, but God, we've been trying to win Texas for so long.
This is a year.
It doesn't hurt. Okay.
You're not going to win it, okay? Texas is going to stay red. All right, Chip Roy, still struggling. We're at 49.2% of the vote on this one. And that is in, and it's 43-28. A little surprising to see that. And obviously, I don't know much about this Middleton character, but Chip Roy's a big name. He was a big congressman all over the media, all over the place. You kind of think that those guys leave the Congress and they go and they're kind of a shoo-in for whatever else they want on the next slot. But nope, Roy's still down, almost 50% of the vote in. Million votes total cast. This is state AG position. And he's not looking good on that. Market's also confirming the same. Here's more.
This
Scratch
is
that.
CNN.
Scratch that. We don't need to go to commercial break. All right, so we're back here. Let's take a look at what else is percolating out there. Any other races that you guys want to see that we have not talked about yet? John says, Chip is a rhino. Yeah, I did remember that, but I just figured that he is such a big name. It's kind of hard to overcome that media. Chip Roy, I remember doing some good stuff and then some not so good stuff. Jasmine still losing. We've got Ken Paxton looking like he's up at 71 over 29. And that's the Chip Roy Kalshi market right there. Brandon Herrera still getting close, a little too close for comfort for our liking on that. Let's check that race to see what has come in yet. And Herrera right here. I think Decision Desk is only letting me like open up a couple tabs. Otherwise, I'd have them all open. But the more tabs I open, it says I'm airing out the whole thing. It's actually increasing in the margin against Herrera. This is kind of annoying. 65% of the vote is in. 13,000 to 11,700. And we just heard the other guy on CNN say that Herrera just lost by like a couple hundred votes the last time. And if none of them get to, obviously, 50%, we'll have another runoff. And this guy, Barton, is holding up 8% of that. So maybe we'll see that happen there too. But 65% there. Herrera down 6 percentage points. See if that changes. Yeah, it might be a runoff again. Fox News covering a little bit of it now. Finally, here's what they got.
Both come away victors in their respective primaries, Sean. So what that means is they'll get a chance to go head-to-head come this fall. Of course, we're going to bring you Decision 26 here on Fox News Channel. Cannot wait. Well, it's going to make for a great fall.
I'm looking for a late-minute surge. There's only 45% of the vote in. Jasmine has time. Kevin.
Hey, Sean!
I will buy you dinner.
I'll take it. Deal. All right, here now with reaction to all of today's top stories. The co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, our friend Charlie Hurt. Oh, boy.
All right, so probably more Iran stuff. But let's see. Where do we want to go next? Not seeing a ton of activity over at the campaign headquarters. We've got C-SPAN continuing on. Crockett is losing 45% of the votes in across the state for that primary.
Right now, Matthew Klein, give an update to our viewers about why we're delayed in getting some votes.
That's right, because of a procedural change in the way that Dallas County and Williamson County are counting their ballots this year and the way that people actually went to the polls, changing it from a county-wide system to a precinct-level system. The County of Dallas will be waiting until 10 o'clock to get any results from that. Of course, that's Jasmine Crockett's home county, and so that is part of the reason why we have not been able to make many bold predictions about where this race is heading. And obviously, once we start to get some numbers in there, it'll shine a little bit more light on that.
Jacob Rubashkin, you're watching these results come in as well. Anything standing out to you right now?
Well, a couple of things I'll note. The first is, I've been hearing from some folks aligned with Talarico who are pretty happy with how things are going so far tonight, especially with the emerging reality that if he is going to win this nomination is going to be with intense strength among Hispanic and Latino voters, because that is the key for Democrats to get back into contention in Texas. When you look at the delta between where Democrats were in 2020 or 2018, which were their two best years in Texas in recent memory, and where they landed in 2024, it is all about Hispanic and Latino voters. And so for James Talarico to be doing so well among that population, I think is heartening to his allies as they begin to look toward potentially a general election. Of course, nobody is particularly confident about how this primary is going to end up. But when you look at previous Democratic Senate nominees, including Beto O'Rourke and Colin Allred, in both of those primaries, both of those candidates struggled mightily with Hispanic voters. There were candidates who were running far less robust campaigns that had Hispanic surnames that captured a tremendous amount of the vote along the southern border in the Rio Grande Valley. That was in perhaps an early warning sign that those voters were simply just not willing to go along with whoever the presumptive Democratic nominee was. So for James Talarico to do that, I think that is a heartening sign for his team as they look toward the general election there. But beyond that, I mean, we've got all of these House primaries across the state of Texas that continue to be nail biters. Tony Gonzalez and Brandon Herrera. Tony Gonzalez has created a little bit of distance between himself and Herrera, but still a single-digit race, and one that looks destined for a runoff. And that House race in Houston, Christian Menefee sitting just below that 50% threshold against Congressman Al Green. Amanda Edwards, who was the former Houston City Councilwoman, who unfortunately has probably the worst timing in politics. She's really struggled in all of her races in the last couple of years. She's capturing almost 7% of the vote, and she dropped out weeks ago. So this is so painful for this group of Houston Democrats and the Houston Democratic voters who have spent the last year without congressional representation. They have watched all of these candidates that they like have to run against each other in race after race after race. If this goes to a runoff between Christian Menefee and Al Green, it will be the fourth race that Christian Menefee is running in Harris County in the last 4 months. This is just a brutal stretch for one of the largest cities in America and the Democratic voters there.
Yeah, we'll continue to update our viewers on these races that we're talking about. You can go to our website, cspn.org/2026. You can dig into the numbers, into these congressional races, look at the map of Texas and see how this redistricting plan is playing out so far here on primary night. Abby Livingston, let's go to the map for the Texas GOP ticket and look at how the colors are filling in here. John Cornyn, the incumbent, is in pink, and you can see the counties that he is leading in, and then you have Ken Paxton in green.
Doesn't
Abby
look like they're going to
Livingston,
get to, nobody's going to get to 50, so we'll have a
this is
runoff between
shaping up
Cornyn
here?
and Paxton, so we won't know that one tonight, I'm
the
sure.
white spaces, it seemed those are rural areas, and those would seem to likely to go for Paxton. So I think we're in a bit of wait and see. But one thing I've noticed when I'm looking at the two maps, the Democratic map and the Republican map, when you go down to South Texas with that pivotal Hispanic vote, you've got Cameron County, which is a big population center, and Webb County, which is where Laredo is, also a big population center. And the Democratic turnout in their primary is exponentially higher than the Republican turnout. And this is an area that Republicans have been on offense. And so, we still have a lot of vote to come in. I'm not one of the specialists who understands the spreadsheets and things, but as a Texan, that strikes me as a major warning sign. Republicans have been betting very big on that redistricting map that Hispanics will stay with the GOP or at least migrate. And so I think that's a big warning sign for that bet that Republicans have made.
Matthew Klein?
Yeah, I do spend a lot of time in the spreadsheets, for better or for worse. And yes, absolutely right. That was one of the big questions that I had, just sort of the overarching questions beyond who the nominees ended up being, was what the Latino electorate looks like, both within these primaries and as a whole. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of Latino voters certainly still feel comfortable voting in the Democratic primary. Now, whether that speaks more to James Talarico.
All right, they're talking about a runoff over on CNN. I think we may have missed it, but here's what they're shouting about, saying they're anticipating a runoff on, yeah, I think we missed it, but anticipating a runoff in Texas.
Thought about how this could shape out. What do you make of what John King is looking at so far?
Yeah, I am especially focused on those counties in the Rio Grande. If Democrats are able to put up a candidate who is able to bring some of those voters back to the Democratic side, that will, I mean, Texas is still Texas, right? It's still a very Republican state. I know you all were talking about it as Lucy with the football before. Very much so a challenging place. But I've been thinking a lot about the 2018 midterm lately. And remember in Texas in 2018, you had Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke. And I feel like there are some interesting parallels here. Do Republicans wind up with a candidate who is more or less electable than Ted Cruz? Do Democrats in James Talarico wind up with someone who is better or worse than a Beto O'Rourke? And then what does the political environment look like if Latino voters in Texas and elsewhere break away from the GOP that they had swung to in 2024? That will create some real headwinds. But I think for Texas, you need all three of those things to be in place. You need a bad Republican, a good Democrat, and a good environment if you even want to have a chance of that.
I mean, Karen, you said you were a baby Democrat, I believe, last time. I mean, we have video from 1988, the last time a Democratic senator was elected in Texas. When you look at this
Okay, so 1992.
All right, hilarious over there. All right, so here is just a quick roundup. So right now, Texas House 23, this is the Herrera one. We're at 65% of the vote in. Herrera's down 6 percentage points. Looks like not much of a change there. The Calshi markets. So the difference between Calshi and Poly market, if you're not familiar with these, is Poly market is basically foreign, not approved in the United States to go make bets on it, but people still do. But Calshi is approved in the United States, which is why we generally will refer to those. We're not sponsored by either of them. I know there are other people who are and may be a little bit reticent to disclose that, but we are not. But we just think that they're very interesting and usually right. So on Calshi, they're still saying that Herrera is going to win this thing, but it's looking like we may not see anybody get to 51%. So we may have a runoff again, like last time, between Gonzalez and Herrera's. We've got 65% of the vote in on that. And polls are supposed to close in another like 9 minutes or so. And so we're going to stick through, I would say, the 10 o'clock hour. We'll see what the numbers are. And then we'll see what you say about all of these races and close it out. But all right, we've got Gonzalez, who's up ahead versus Herrera. We've got Al Green. Looks like he's losing, although no one's at 50% on that one either. So Menifee is up 48-43. Al Green not looking like he's going to be winning that one. But it could be a runoff. That's over 95%, so Al Green may be booted out. Now we got Chip Roy. The Chip Roy race is 42-29, almost 51% of the vote in, so over halfway there. And Chip Roy still struggling, although it looks like those numbers are interesting. Let's check this one. Attorney General nominee over from Real Time Calshi. They still got Mays Middleton up ahead, but those numbers, man, are closing back up again. So maybe Chip Roy has a possibility of winning there. Talarico, has he hit 50%? He has. So Jasmine might be just SOL. 53% for Talarico over Crockett. She's at 45. Hassan only at 1%. So that might be the game. They're at 50% right now, and I've seen them on the cables kind of kicking this around, talking about what Jasmine would need to pull off in these unreported counties in order to win, because there's still a lot of stuff that's out there. But can she close the margin of basically 100,000 votes? Probably unlikely. So Talarico looking good over there. Over to the Cornyn race. Of course, a little bit of an error. Let's do a refresh. We're live. Cornyn, 43%. Paxton, 40%. 43-40. Hunt's got 13% of the vote, 54% in. That updated just a minute ago. And they still are showing, it looks like Paxton may be winning that race here over here. Paxton 70-30 on the Kalshi markets. But again, it doesn't look like anybody, like, we're not going to have any finality tonight on some of these, which is unfortunate. And all right, let's also check in on Eye Patch McCain. What is his name? Crenshaw. That's right. Crenshaw's race. See where he's at on this one. If this will load up for us. There it is. 57 to 39. 63% of the vote in on that. Last update was about 30 minutes ago. So that's been hovering right around the same. We'll add that to our watch list. So we've got that easily queued up. But right now, Toth looks like he's on top. And wow, apparently the Texas Supreme Court just came down with something. MS Now's reporting this. Texas Supreme Court just paused another judge's order on the Dallas polls. Let's see what's going on here.
Of the vote extension in Dallas County, are people being stopped from voting right now?
What I know is that the county is being told you have to take the votes that were cast in the last 2 hours. It's coming up upon that 9 o'clock hour central here in Texas right now. You have to take the votes that were cast by people who are not in line at 7 o'clock, push them to the side, and the fate and the status of those votes is now unknown. And of course, if you're Jasmine Crockett, you're thinking this is terrible for you because this is the county where you're going to hopefully roar back into contention in this race.
And this is as you said, it was a Dallas judge who ordered the extension of voting in Dallas County. And then it was U.S. Senate candidate and sitting Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who asked for an individual state Supreme Court judge to weigh in and essentially overturn that other judge's ruling?
Ask the Supreme Court of Texas if they would come in and temporarily block that Dallas judge's order, and the Supreme Court came back and said, yes, we temporarily block it.
Do we know, is it multiple judges on the Texas Supreme Court, or is it one judge's ruling?
I mean, I don't know whether it was one judge or multiple, but my sense is that the court institutionally, as opposed to one assigned justice individually, but that's something we'll determine here in the course of the report.
Yeah, this is crazy stuff. Evan Smith, keep talking to your sources and do what you can to help us understand this. I think we'll be coming back to you. I can tell you, for all the lawyers who are listening to me right now, who are going to understand what I'm about to tell you, this is from the Supreme Court of Texas. Orders pronounced. A stay is issued in the following petition for writ of mandamus in re State of Texas from Dallas County. The district court's order granting emergency petition to extend voting hours issued today in cause number styled Cardell Coleman in his capacity as Dallas County Democratic Party chair versus Paul Adams in his official capacity as Dallas County Elections Administrator in the 162nd District Court, Dallas County, Texas, is stayed, meaning the earlier ruling that was in place that extended Dallas County voting, that order is stayed. And then here's the money quote. Voting should occur only as permitted by Texas Election Code Section 41-032. Votes cast by voters who were not in line to vote at 7 p.m. local time should be separated. Note, the petition for writ of mandamus remains pending before this court.
Okay.
Chris Hayes, what do you make of this?
Well, I mean... All right, so... yeah, that's pretty interesting. So we're going to have people who were told that they could vote, and then the order that allowed them to vote was actually reversed. It's kind of how I'm understanding that. I was trying to find the actual order, but I do not see it anywhere. And so we'll keep following that, but very curious back and forth over there. And is this... no, this is not Jasmine speaking right now. Here is what we got playing on C-SPAN.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, identity politics has been an extremely important part of this primary. Jasmine Crockett has made not been shy about the fact that she is a champion for African-American voters in the state of Texas. What we're seeing tonight in the results, certainly what we were seeing in the polls heading into this night, was that she was going to put up a very strong showing with black voters in Texas, and that seems to be the case. It's the flip side, right? James Talarico seems to be doing better with white voters and Hispanic voters at this point. So yes, we've seen identity politics come to the forefront in this race, even if a lot of Democrats sort of wish that it wouldn't.
Here's the order. Texas Supreme Court has temporarily blocked a Dallas judge's order to keep the polls open till 9, ordering the county to separate out votes from people who were not in line at 7 p.m. Not a final ruling, but it's going to create chaos in getting results from Dallas County. And it looks like Ken Paxton filed this. So here is the actual order. If I can get this properly situated. Here you go. A stay is issued in re-state of Texas from Dallas County. The district court's order granting an emergency petition to extend the voting hours issued today. In this cause, styled Cardell Coleman in his capacity as Dallas County Democrat Party chair and his official capacity as election administrator, is stayed. Voting should occur only as permitted by Texas election code. Don't change the deadlines. Votes cast by voters who were not in line to vote at 7 should be separated out. Wow. Very interesting over there. And who were those voters? Jasmine Crockett said stay in line. This is in response. Attorney General Ken Paxton submitted this one. Has asked the Supreme Court of Texas to overturn the Dallas judge's ruling, allowing the polls to stay open until 9 p.m., saying the judge did not give the OAG the required notice for the extension. So they were just acting on their own volition. Here's the order. Cardell Coleman as the Democratic Party chair. So the Democrats sued, filed a lawsuit. Paul Adams as the Dallas County Elections Administrator. And then some lower level Texas judge said, it's extended. On March 3rd, this is the judge who extended it. Came on to be heard an emergency petition to extend voting hours. We've reviewed the petition. The court, after reviewing the petition, finds that there has been mass confusion as to where two voters. There has been mass confusion as to where two voters were entitled to cast their ballots on Election Day. And voter confusion was so severe, just like COVID, that the Dallas County Election Department website crashed. Oh, no. To ensure that voters are allowed to cast their ballots in Dallas, polling locations, says this judge, are to be kept open, and voting is extended from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It is therefore ordered, this just got reversed, obviously. It is therefore ordered that polls in Dallas be kept open and that the hours for voting be extended from 7 to 9. That was from the presiding judge for the something district. And there was an emergency motion to extend voting hours. We saw all of that back during COVID. Emergency, emergency, emergency. Everyone's going to die unless we change the election rules instantly. So that's interesting development that we just saw happen right there. And polls should have just closed about 2 minutes ago, so we'll see what else is coming in.
Something to keep in mind as we continue to talk about each of these population centers in Texas. Again, it's a big, big state, and doing well in any given city is not determinative of whether you're going to do well statewide. But the other thing I would say, and I think, part of the reason why I love being here on C-SPAN is that we get to talk to real voters. And one thing that I've noticed consistently in the Democratic voters we're talking to in Texas, there's a real age.
All right, they're doing the map thing over on CNN. Let's check it out.
Central Dallas County voting.
The rest of the map is pretty impressive for Talarico. He's running it up in the places where in the Republican primary or Republican general election, you see Trump run it up. These are these small rural counties up here. And he's also running very strong. Talarico is in these Latino majority counties down in the Rio Grande Valley, here in southeast Texas, and then all the way out towards El Paso. If you come all the way over here to the corner, you see in El Paso County 62% to 36% if you round that up. So the coalition for Talarico right now is working. The question is what happens when the area, Dallas, again, again, where Crockett's district is. This Democrat, who do Democrats want to send into that fight in November? And then the question, of course, is who will that candidate be? And it looks like we might have to wait until May to find that out. We're not certain of that yet, but Texas rules. You need 50% plus one. And you see here the incumbent Republican Senator John Cornyn at 43. The Attorney General, a very mega candidate, Ken Paxton at 41. Congressman Wesley Hunt at 13%. Some Republicans will say he's the spoiler there. He was trying to run as an alternative to two candidates. He said their time had come and passed.
Kind of hoping we had a result on that one tonight.
43, 41 as the map fills in. Half the vote counted at 50%. Is it conceivable? Mathematically, yes. But it's been this way, Abby, for quite a long time. It looks like the Democrats will pick their standard bearer tonight, and the Republicans, in the most expensive Senate race in history already, will have to fight it out through May.
Yeah, I mean, that seems clear on the Republican side so far. But on the Democratic side, John, I'm curious. Dallas County is still out, but the other population centers, I mean, have we gotten those votes in, and are some of the larger tranches of votes already in, with the exception of Dallas County?
Yes, which is why I noted that the Talarico lead has been stretching out, too, from 50,000 to 60,000, now to 92,000. So the math is getting harder, right? At some point, this is simply, we try to say so we can keep our jobs, that politics is really complicated. In the end, it's the first math we learned, addition and subtraction. And Talarico is running it up at the moment. So you talked about the population centers. Let's just go through the top 5 counties quickly. Harris County is by far the largest county, more people in the state of Texas. And Congresswoman Crockett getting 54% there to Talarico's 46. So a good bounce for her in the largest population center. And then you come up to number 2, which is Dallas, which is what we're waiting on. And again, this is where her congressional district is. So let's be patient and wait for it. You move over next door, that's Tarrant County. That's the number 3, 254 counties in giant Texas. This is number 3. Again, her district stretches into this county a little bit, 56 to 43. So she's winning big there. She might in the end say maybe not big enough as you go through. Only 60% of the vote in there, so we'll go from there. But then as you move down to some of the other population centers, Bexar County is where you have San Antonio. That's the 4th most populous. And you see, again, Talarico, pretty healthy lead there, 57% to 43. And then he's a state representative. As I said, you come up to Travis County here, which is Austin, where the state government is, and he's trouncing her here, 76% to 23%. And then you just pull out and you look at the map and you're saying, where else could it be? Smaller cities, right? Lubbock, you come up here, a healthy win for Talarico here. So Dallas is becoming key, especially one of the big questions as we head into November. Did Texas Republicans make a bad bet? Did they overbet on the increased Latino support that Trump had from 2016 to 2020 to winning a majority in 2024? Did they make a bad bet? Are Latinos swinging back to the Democrats? One of Talarico's calling cards, if he wins, if he wins this nomination tonight, is just look down here in the Rio Grande Valley. He's doing very well in counties. I was here in the Texas 34th Congressional District not that long ago. This is Cameron County. Brownsville, Texas is down here, the southernmost border crossing between the United States and Mexico. This is overwhelmingly Hispanic county. Talarico there, 63% to 34% if you round up. So we're not done with the math here yet. And one of the challenges as you talk to your panel, what a lot of Democrats are afraid of is regardless of who wins here, will the other person's coalition not show up? So if Talarico wins, do black voters not show up? If Crockett wins, does somehow, these white rural voters here, maybe who are coming back to the Democrats or coming back to vote in the primary after they've given up voting for a long time? That's one of the big questions for Texas. How many times have we had this conversation in our lifetimes, Abby? Can the Democrats win Texas? To do so, they need to be near perfect. So while there's a lot of focus on is this too bloody? Right? Are the Republicans having such a bloody primary, likely to go into a runoff? Are they hurting themselves? It's a very fair question. But there's also a calculation on the Democratic side. When we finally do get to a winner tonight, can the party heal it? Because they need to be near perfect to keep this in play come November. If we're talking about this state, this Senate race on election night in November, that tells you Trump and the Republicans are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And John, I think you gave us the perfect jumping off point for the panel. Thank you very much. And do stand by for us because this race hasn't been called yet, neither of them in the state of Texas, and everybody's looking at Texas. We've got a couple of folks from the Lone Star State at the table.
Looks
I'll start
like
with you, Isaiah, because John's question is really important. I mean, whatever happens.
All right, so we'll keep our eye on that. We know there's like one sane person on that panel named Scott Jennings, and so we'll wait for them to circle back to him. But quick roundup of the polls. So Gonzalez and the Herrera race, we're now up to 70% in. And that one is looking like it's going to be a runoff, man. What a bummer. We thought that that might be closer. And Gonzalez is beating Herrera Come on. He's a YouTuber. Should be a shoo-in. So Gonzalez is up 45 to 39. 70% of the votes in. The markets are looking like they're getting a little bit tight on this, but there'll be a runoff, and presumably, I mean, who knows if how much the numbers change. Like, let's say every one of Barton's votes goes to Herrera, then he'll win. Yeah, he'll win, but he needs every one of Barton's votes. So, all right, so that will continue probably to peter out throughout the night. Doesn't look like anybody's going to really get to 50% in total, so probably have a runoff there. We've also got the Al Green race. Ooh, Menifee's getting close to 48%, almost 50, but he probably is not going to get it. We still have over 95% in on that one, so Al Green, the sign master, will probably survive at least to the runoff coming up in May. We then have Chip Roy. We got 55% of the vote in on this one. Chip Roy still getting blown out here. 42 to 29%, not closing the gap at all. 1.2 million total votes come in. And it looks like Middleton is still on top, although this little box over here doesn't seem like it's very accurate because it's different here on Kalshi. Middleton is now up to about 90% back on top there as the numbers continue to pour in. What else? That's Chip Roy, but not even close to a 50% threshold, so we'll have a runoff on that. Chip Roy will survive another day. Talarico, of course, he's the only one really who might clinch this thing and be done with it. Cornyn and Paxton, that looks like it's tightening up a little bit. 59 to 93. 43.49 for Cornyn. 40.03 for Paxton. Not a huge difference. Whatever that number is, 44,000 votes maybe between the two. Wesley Hunt with 166,000 votes, and I'm sure that's irritating a lot of Republicans in the party, saying Hunt should have just dropped out, and then Cornyn could have picked those up and clinched 50%, and could have kept it going, or maybe Paxton similarly. Toth Crenshaw is done. Crenshaw is done. 63% of the votes now in, and Toth is well over the threshold, 57 to 39. I wonder what happened with Dan. People not happy about that. Hey, Mike Benz is on Fox News right now. Shout out to Mike Benz. Check this out. Man, what a cool dude. He's over there. Shout out to Mike. Let's check in on him. See what he's saying.
Well, even judges, it is going to be difficult to see a way that does not involve hundreds of thousands of casualties, which is unlike the kind of maneuvers we've seen from Trump's restraint in the past.
Yeah, I heard he even took out the band Flock of Seagulls. Because of the song.
I ran so far away. So far. I ran so far away.
Yeah. Never liked that song either. All right, Cat. It was a terrible joke, but Mike is so serious, and I just grilled him for 5 minutes. I needed to get some levity in there, and it's you, Cat. It's you all over. He said no new war, no new forever wars. Did he betray the people?
All right, so we missed Mike Benz, but I'm sure he gave us some very astute observations. Scott Jennings is up. Let's check out what's up.
So the strategy is this. If you're Cornyn, you get to a runoff, and you have your people who are close to Trump go to him and say, listen, it's going to be harder for Paxton to beat a Talarico and energize Democratic base. We don't have $100 million to try to save a Texas Senate race for the Republicans. We shouldn't be spending money here, so come in for Cornyn. A lot of this is on Trump's shoulders. If he determines in the runoff to make a choice, that would probably be determinative, but the president hasn't done that yet.
And I think in the event of a runoff, those Wesley Hunt votes are probably going to go to Ken Paxton. And I think
you think so?
I think likely that's my guess.
Even if the president told them, I want Cornyn?
Because that could be persuasive, but then again, I think Trump's endorsement, it's debatable how much power that carries at the end of the day.
I guess you could be right about that because Wesley
powerful.
Hunt has run a very anti-Cornyn campaign from the beginning.
Right, but I think
more than anything else.
What both of these races, though, both Democratic, Republican side, indicate to me is that they're referendums on who are the fighters and who are the folders. That's James Talarico's words. And when it comes to Cornyn, he is more palatable, and he doesn't risk alienating independents the way that Ken Paxton does. He has too much baggage, too many skeletons in his closet and scandals, I think, for a lot of independents to swallow. But I think ultimately it does come down to, quality of life issues, like you were saying, the economy and things like that. And I will say the risk of Talarico winning the nomination here is that he's trying to pitch this Mamdani-light style of economic populism in a state like Texas, which, even though it's become more purple, is still not a red state. And in recent elections, recent years, they're not all that comfortable with voting in Democrats across the state.
They're not a blue state.
Sorry, they're not a blue state. They're not a blue state. And I think, when it comes to waging war against the billionaires, what that translates to is higher taxes. And I don't think Texas, which is a tax haven, just like Florida, I'm not so sure they're going to be well on board with that.
Well,
let you respond real quick.
I just want to say, Trump went and passed these massive tax cuts for the richest people on earth, and costs are still going up. People are seeing that despite these tax cuts, you still have unemployment numbers going up. So ultimately, I think what this is a showing of is people in our country that are just sick of the policies that have been passed in Washington that are just simply not working.
Well, but the thing is, so like I said, the Mamdani prescription is affordability, right? But Democrats, including Talarico, they're not explaining what that actually means. Affordability means productivity plus innovation.
It means raising your property taxes. Mamdani said that he was going to go demand that your property taxes go up, or all taxes go up across the entire state, not just the property taxes there in New York City. So that's their policy prescription. Or like Joe Biden did, you come in and you spend trillions of dollars, and then everybody's costs go up because our country is inflated into oblivion. That's on CNN. I was waiting for them to go back to Mike Benz because he's a nice guy. All right, so let's check out what else is happening out here over on C-SPAN. Here is the latest here on what they're talking about, waiting for some more polls to close or come in.
X. I've seen enough. James Talarico wins Texas Senate Democratic primary. Again, the Associated Press has not called this, and we've been waiting for votes to come in from Dallas County. But what do you make of Dave Wasserman's call here?
Well, Dave Wasserman, that looks great friend of mine, close colleague. I am not going to go against Dave's call. When he has seen enough, he has seen enough. I certainly think that based on the numbers
Crockett
that we're seeing
speaking right now?
I said this a bit.
I think she might be speaking right now. Here's just I can't tell. Was this earlier?
Fortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County.
What?
And I think we all know why.
Oh!
So, I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow. So I love y'all too. Thank you so very much for being here. Love you down. I love you down, Dallas.
Fight, Jasmine. You should fight. You should demand a recount.
Jasmine Crockett speaking live in Dallas right now. We got to that as soon as we realized she was up at the podium there, but you heard the nut of what she said. She said they are not expecting to have...
We did hear the nut of what she said. Says we're going to fight like hell. Remember, who did that? Was that Al Gore? Was that John Kerry who came out? Didn't Hillary refuse to come out one night? What was that? I'm misremembering something. Somebody refused to come out, and then they came out, and then I think Hillary conceded the next day. Was that it? Yeah. Well, she should demand a fight and say Talarico stole it from her, and they can continue to just duke it out for the rest of the primary season, and that will, of course, help the Republican candidate. So, Jasmine, we stand by it. Talarico stole this from you. Go demand some answers. And continue to fight, fight, fight. All right, so here's more from CNN. And then...
For 40 years is if people are trying to find their place to vote, let them vote. Find a way to let them vote. So we'll see how that plays out in Dallas County and if it's happening anywhere else. I will just tell you at the moment, we're not close to calling this race, best of my knowledge anyway. Our decision desk, our experts, they're working on this. But we're up close to 60% of the estimated vote counting. His lead has gone from triple digits, yes, to 69,000. But you do get to a point where that's 5 points. That's 5 points. And so if you're Congresswoman Crockett, I can fully understand why you're saying let people vote, keep the polls open, because you're doing the math. You're behind right now, and you're trying to squeeze every last vote you can.
Yeah, this is still a live race and that we're going to continue to follow. John King, please stand by for us as we wait for these results. Some breaking news tonight in the war against Iran.
So, yeah, somebody said Hillary sent John Podesta out. I think that's the one I'm remembering. Somebody was like pathetic, and we're like, you lost. You got obliterated. And then I think Hillary came out the next day, and she just looked like a mess, like she would, was up drinking all night or something, and then came out and had to go and concede because she lost to President Trump. Glorious day, indeed. All right, so what else is happening? Let's do a final round here, and then we'll see what you guys say about all of this as we continue to monitor. We've got some updates. Yeah, polls have closed in Texas 18 minutes ago. It's all closed. Roy Cooper won. James Talarico has a comfortable margin. Crenshaw, gone. He is currently in a tough battle with Toth. I think that one's pretty much over. And all right, let's see what else is percolating over here. Quick roundup of the Calshies. We've got AG nominee. Looks like Chip Roy still struggling there. We've got Ken Paxton dropping way down, 62 to 36%. Ken Paxton started the night out at 81%. Now 63. Once again, I think it's going to be a runoff, so it's kind of all just moot. Crockett, flatlined. A little bit of a blurb right here. Oh, she's like, oh no, hey, 1.7%. Hey, 1.8%. Uh-oh, 1.7. 1.4. 1.7. Yeah, we're winning again. And down to 1. And even below Colin Allred. Womp. Well, hopefully she continues to fight. She should sue Talarico on this thing. And Brandon Herrera. Okay, so coming back up, let's check his numbers. Looks like that is a positive development over there. Let's go to our decision desk and get that back open. That was giving me some grief. My apologies. So let's get that open once again. Hopefully this thing loads up. There we go. All right, we're looking at Herrera. Currently, 70% of the votes are in on this one. Why is this erroring out all of a sudden? Let's do this. Server side error on my end. So I don't see the actual numbers on that one, but we'll continue to try to find them. Over here, Republicans. Toth is up. Ronnie Jackson won. Monica De La Cruz. Tony Gonzalez is up in the lead right now over on CNN. 44.8 to 40.2%, with 55% of the votes in out there for Brandon Herrera. So 1,500 vote difference, and probably won't cross, I would guess, the 50% threshold. So that will probably go to a runoff again, just like it did before. And here's live now. Let's check out what's going on live. So Crockett is over. She spoke. Nothing from her. Talarico looks like he has not come out yet. John Cornyn looks like they're gearing up for him to speak. We'll see if that comes out. And keep our eye on that. But all right, so friends, we're going to keep monitoring this. Let's see what you have to say about all this. I saw some great donos come in. Thank you for sending those in. And here are some of them. Let's see what we've got cooking. And thank you, Donut, for clipping for us tonight. We got Donut Mind Me with some clips. We got some, looks like kitty cats in here today. Wow. Yeah, thanks for joining us for a little election night coverage. Always a little different to get into some of this. But these are important times, and so we appreciate you. Oh, man. Oh, man, Rick, that's heavy. So thank you for that. We've got the names of the dead Americans killed in our latest war. Jenna Griswold's a liar. We did not get to that segment today. Thank you, Rick D, for flagging that, and John for sending that one in. We had some great comments that came in. Thank you, friends, for sending these in as we wait for more activity. We can also flip this back over to the, well, let's do this. Let's bring in our amazing comments right here so that we can see them on the screen as we're monitoring. Yeah, shout out to our fallen soldiers. Heartbreaking. All right, Jenna Griswold. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow. We'll come back on that one tomorrow and get into the Jenna Griswold stuff. Timothy Tonello. What's up, Timothy? Thank you for becoming a member and joining up. We had a great members only stream this morning. We talked about, I think, some Supreme Court stuff this morning. Feels like it was like 2 weeks ago this morning, but it was a great stream. Thank you to our members. We have members only streams in the morning, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning, bright and early, baby. Not that bright and early, but in the morning. Curtis Bartle, what's up? 44 months as a member. Curtis, you're amazing. Let's go MAGA. Yeah, and I think one of the concerning features across all of these campaigns tonight was the fact that we had maybe very high turnouts for the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. All right, so my decision desk is now working again. So it looks like a temporary little blurb on that. Little problem. But yes, okay, so Texas House 23, I think, was what you were asking for. Pin King, thank you for flagging that one for us. That's the Brandon Herrera race. Pin King, thank you for the dono. Thank you for the suggestion. It's close, 39 to 45, 70% in, last updated right now, actually. Thank you for that, Pin King. We've got this one from Gauntlet KI. You should need to be a member to vote in primaries. So like a member of the party, you're either a Republican, so basically closed primaries, right? There are open primaries where you can cross the line and go vote. You know, if you're a Democrat, you can go vote for the Republicans in the primary, or if you're a Republican, vice versa. But we would prefer to have it closed so the Democrats can't come over and influence the Republican side of the vote. And that is happening, by the way. There are super Democrats who are running as Republicans because they know that's the only way they can win, because it's a Republican district. So Democrats run as Republicans, try to beat them in the Republican primary, want their Democrats to come over and vote for them in the open primary, and then take the seat. That's a problem. Rick D, man, thank you, Rick, for sharing this. We pause and pray for our U.S. military who are still in harm's way, and of course, these 4 who have now been killed. Says the U.S. military, they were killed in the drone attack in Kuwait. Prayers up for Captain Cody Cork, SFC Noah Tietjens, SFC Nicole Amor, and Sergeant Declan Cody. We salute you. Prayers up. May you rest in peace. Prayers for your family. And we mourn your tragic loss. Thank you, Rick D, for pausing and paying our respects to them. Thank you, John, for this one. The new Ayatollah. Oh, there's a job posting on Indeed for a new Ayatollah. That's it. 50 grand a year to be the new Ayatollah. You got to go to Tehran for this. Are there any moving costs? Like, do you get, like moving stipends or anything like that? All right. Well, yeah, it's not going to be, there's probably not a lot of hazard pay either. Hey, yeehaw, Cowgirl for God. What's up, Cowgirl for God? Brandon Herrera, Brandon Herrera, Brandon Herrera, Brandon Herrera. Gonzalez must go. Vote in Brandon Herrera. Man, that's a nice song. Cowgirl. Number 1 in the chat. Thank you, Cowgirl, for the dono. And we've got that queued up right now. It's right there. So probably going to come back on a runoff on that. And we have to support our YouTubers who are running for office. We need them. Hey, America's Untold Stories rated the stream. Hey, are those our friends over on YouTube too? Yeah, America's Untold Stories, man. Shout out. Thank you for coming over and joining us. They've done some good work on that channel. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. Shout out to our friends. Tim Jake, hey, confusion about voting in the correct precinct? I've been voting since 1978, and I've always had to vote at the correct precinct for in-person voting. Minnesota, Ohio, Nebraska, now in Colorado. So no in-person voting. Yeah, and I've done that too. Like literally, I've gone to the wrong location. I'm like, I thought it's supposed to be at this church, and you're not. Like, actually, it's that church. Oh, all right. Just get in your car and drive over there. So Tim, Jake, it's my fault, not the government's fault. Doesn't mean we extend all of the rules. Like, you want to participate in your democratic republic? There are certain things you have to do in order to do that. Cowgirl for God. Hey, Cowgirl became our newest membo. Amazing. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only morning stream. Can't wait to get in on that one. Should be a good one. Hopefully we'll have some more election numbers. King of Biltong is here. Go to Biltong USA, and at that location, you can use code Robert and you'll get 10% off your order of premium biltong, high protein, keto friendly, no additives, US sourced beef, authentic South African flavor, all at biltongusa.com. Thank you, Biltong. Hey, what's going on? B Steel. You sent in 2 donos. Man, amazing. Thank you, B Steel. Talarico is a false teacher from B Steel, and says it once again, just to be clear. Talarico is a false teacher. Courtesy of B Steel. Thank you, B Steel, for the donos. Charlie Earth Roast says numbers 511 through 28 is what some say alludes to a mandated abortion. The book of Numbers demands abortions for adulteresses? Oh no. It's biblical? Is Talarico right? Virgin Mary had an option to abort baby Jesus? Wow. I didn't learn that in Sunday school. Thank you both for those. Charlie Earth Roast, thank you. Heath C. Walker. So it's in Numbers, huh? All right. Well, we'll see what the Texans have to say about that. Maybe they support it. All the libs are like, yeah, sure, it's biblical. Just go abort your baby. Yeah, just drive the DNC abortion van right around the corner. Pull up and we can all get abortions out there. Thank you, guys. Honestly, I don't know that passage, but very interesting. Rich Borek. Trump took out Iran leader on Islamic 9/11, the 11th day of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. Very interesting. Very interesting from Rich Borek. And yeah, that's interesting too. Wasn't it also like a Jewish holiday? Like Purim or something like that is also simultaneous with that. It's very interesting. Hey, K-Bean, can you explain why we want Crockett to win? Oh, yeah, because I think she's more easily beatable in the general. So these are primaries. So I think Talarico is actually a harder candidate to beat because he's not as crazy. So if you put him on the spectrum, on far left versus far right, I think Jasmine is way further left than Talarico is. So Talarico, I think, is going to be viewed more as a moderate, like a preacher, and I think he'll be more attractive to Texas voters than Crockett would be. So I think if it's Crockett versus Paxton, Paxton wins. If it's Talarico versus Paxton, I think it's going to be close. It's going to be like Cruz versus Beto again. Very close. And Paxton, I mean, we like Paxton and appreciate his policies, but he does have a bunch of, additional baggage that's out there that even Cornyn was really ratcheting. So Cornyn has helped, I would say, the Democrats diminish Paxton, and Crockett versus Paxton almost to me is like a competent person versus an insane person. So I think Crockett is easier to beat. That's really the only reason for it. That's why we say we want Jasmine Crockett to be the Democratic primary candidate, because we can beat her more easily. Corn, thank you for the clarification, K-Bean. Sorry if I was a little bit off on that one or unclear. Corn Dog, I don't think people realized how screwed Texas is. Just look at the numbers of Indians and Californians that the Texas GOP begged to come over. Talarico does the moderate cosplay, there you go, really well. If Paxton wins, he will be an extremist, right? Exactly. According to the Democrats, and his past baggage isn't a good look. Either way, Texas is a sinking ship. Don't do it, Texas. Don't get blackpilled by this. And the Republicans only have themselves to blame. We have to stand firm, Texas. Kick out the Californians. Hey, Shino, please remember we have tons more transplants, mainly from California, from this primary. I know. They come over, and then they want to turn Texas into California. It's like, why'd you leave? Now you want to turn it back into a dump over there? Corn Dog, the Republicans sow out their voters in the states, not just Texas. By saying they needed Democrats and foreigners to move into their states to help the economy and to have DRs, the Republicans could have literally set up trade programs. In the next 5 years, the Republicans are going to reap the whirlwind, and with that, so goes the Republic. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Democrats want cheap votes. Republicans want cheap labor. Everybody wants to increase GDP. Republicans don't care about the demographics of the country as much as they care about money and satiating their donors and there are so many like think tanks. I think I saw Cato and, the Koch brothers and all of them want H-1Bs out the wazoo. Bring them in because it's good for their bottom line. They don't care about the average American who works and wants a job. No, shut up. We need an H-1B here to do it for half the cost. Rick D, Dan Crenshaw losing by 9 points with 31% in, and that held steady through the entire night. And looks like Dan is out. Go trade some stocks over out of Congress. Boiling Point Live. Hey, amazing. Another raid of our stream. Thank you, Boiling Point. Grateful to have you here. Shout out to our Boiling Point Live friends. Thanks for joining us on our first election night of the year. Panos Heat Seeking, our newest supporter. Great to see you, Panos Heat Seeking. Welcome aboard. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only stream. And new members, if you're looking for more stuff to watch, we covered some good stuff this morning. Biltong, what's up? King of Biltong. Rob, if you want a good chuckle, look up where fake eyelashes come from. J-Ma knows. I don't know. Where does Jasmine get hers? Are they from one of those Venus flytrap plants? Is that what they are? So like when a bug lands in there, so Jasmine just cut them off the plant and just like strap them to her head so she can go out there and clean up all the flies around Texas. Jasmine Crockett. Hey, Red Pill Fight Club. What's up, Red Pill Fight Club? Thank you for joining us. Man, that looks like a good fight club, but first rule is we don't talk about it. Thank you. Hey, Nacho Mama. 18 months as a member. That's 2 full babies, 2 full terms. Thank you, Nacho. Thank you, Rob. Love watching elections with you. It is fun, right? It's a little fun. It's a little different. Kind of a change of pace. Get to hang out for a long time and kind of poke around, see what the hell's going on. It's fun. Thank you, Nacho Mama. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have more of them to get to, and it's going to be a busy year. Hey, Izzy Cat shared this one. Hey, please, Izzy Cat. I need help. Any and all prayers are greatly appreciated, but if you could also check out my Give, Send, Go. Oh man, eviction. The title is Hope at Home. Fight eviction, help family heal. Thank y'all. All right, so if you're out there and you've got some funds and you've got some warmth in your heart to help our friend Izzy's cat fight eviction, check it out on Give, Send, Go. The fundraiser is called Hope at Home, Fight Eviction, Help Family Heal. Izzy's cat, I hope it works out for you. And we appreciate you being here. Thank you for the dono. Although, looks like you're tight on funds. So thank you for sending us the dono. But we hope you get some support and you're able to not get evicted. Izzy's cat, thank you. Baby Lewis, great job, everyone. Thank you, Baby Lewis. Thank you for being here and being a part of our coverage. Couldn't do it without you. This one from Corn Dog. This is who is going to be in charge of Congress after November because the GOP is useless. Well, it looks like we're on the verge of getting rid of some of the bad GOPers. So Cornyn, hopefully in the runoff, gone. We got to get rid of like the crap GOP Republicans. They're just terrible. Guys like Thune, guys like Tillis. Did you see Tillis today? Oh my gosh, disgusting person. Screaming at Kristi Noem. I don't remember him ever getting that aggressive with anybody from the Biden administration, or Alejandro Mayorkas, who was invading our country by design. Tom Tillis just sat there and was like, well, all right, I might disagree with your policies there, Alejandro, but I wish you well, or I wish you good health or something. It's like, okay, Tom, good riddance to him. So, but yeah, the Democrats are going to come in and probably just, things might have to get a lot worse before they get better. Taoist Punk. What's up, Taoist Punk? Thank you, Taoist, for the nice dono. Not even a comment. But shout out to all of our Taoist punks out there and for being number one in the chat. Thank you for that. Oh my goodness. We've got goats. Corn Dog. I don't think my 2 little dudes are going to get big. They are kind of runty. These are your goats? Billy the Goat stares in judgment of the shenanigans in Congress. Well, those look like fluffy little fur balls, man. They have a dog bed. I mean, I don't know anything about goats, but they look like they're very happy, and hopefully you guys are having a good time out there. Can you do anything? Like, can you drink their milk? Probably goat milk, right? I've heard of that. I'm a city boy, as you know. We're in Prescott now, but I grew up in the city. Man Crush Monday, MCM. Rob, I keep getting messages from someone named May with your mom's pic thanking me for supporting her son. Is your mom on X trying to get people to watch you, or is that some kind of an imposter? That might be an imposter, MCM. So I think my mom has an X account. Her name is Marianne, but she's not asking anybody for, well, I mean, we have ericshouse.org, but we have a fundraiser coming up, I think in May. We're doing Eric's House. We do have a nonprofit. My mom started a nonprofit for people who've lost somebody due to drugs, alcohol, or suicide, because my brother is now dead thanks to drugs and suicide. Eric, rest in peace. Miss you, love you. But I don't think she's pinging people on X. Instead, what we'll do is have a fundraiser and then definitely ping you for some money. But otherwise, that might be an imposter, MCM. And I've seen some of that out there. I'm not messaging people for money. I'm not sending any links to go donate anything. Nobody from my family should be doing that. I don't know of any of that. So, MCM, thank you for flagging that. These imposters, man. A lot of it on Rumble, too. So, MCM, thank you for that. Thanks for asking. Yeah, be cautious out there. There's a lot of AI, a lot of liars out there. Off-label. Thank you, Off-Label Podcast, right next door on the YouTubes and the Rumbles. And I think Off-Label is getting into the Epstein depositions, something that has been released now from Clinton and Hillary. With some interesting clips there. We haven't spent a lot of time on it, but 200-watt studio. Yeah, at least there wasn't a water pipe break at the polls. That's right. Yeah, maybe that's what Jasmine needs. Just need a water main break tonight. We wake up tomorrow. Jasmine is now the new Dem nominee. A boy can dream. Off-label. She should call Fannie Willis. Off-label podcast. Only time I'll get to raid your channel. Ha ha. All the tabs open and trying to keep up with everything is a daunting task that is a skill all on its own. Well done on it. Thank you, Off-label. Yeah. It is. You're trying to juggle all these things. All right. And then you got to, I don't know what to say. All right, let's go over CNN. Well, CNN sucks. All right, let's go to Fox. Fox didn't cover it at all, which really wrecked our planning here tonight. Why are they not covering domestic elections? Are these not important to them? Is it only, it's like war constantly? Guys, we have a country to run as well. Off-label, thank you for that. And thanks for the dono. And I know you know how it is out there in the live streams, trying to bring all the tabs together, and then it doesn't refresh and you're live. You're like, hello, we're live. Hey, Chicago, looks like Jasmine Crockett is headed to CNN for her next career. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Maybe MS Now. Probably be a better one. She can sit next to that dude with the hair like this. With that big hairdo. Hey, thank you, Chicago, for the dono. 200-watt studio says Kamala's B. Second word, J's for Crockett. Door-to-door campaign didn't work out. Apparently not. Yeah, I think she was doing robocalls, which was the thing. Kamala did robocalls for Crockett and lost, but maybe she was doing other things too. You never know with Kamala. E. Texley, when I voted in the Texas AG race, the candidates were listed in alphabetical order. That shoved Paxton onto page 2. That did not help. That is not, yeah, that's not a good thing to be on page 2 of anything. Like, for example, page 2 of Google is where you store dead bodies. Nobody ever looks there, so get away with it. Rod Loblaw. Man, shout out to Rod Loblaw. I thought about starting a blog called Rob's Law Blog, which is from that show called Arrested Development. Bob's Law Blog. And if you say it fast, Blob's Law Blog, Bob's Law Blog. It sounds like you're saying blah, 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 right? So Rob's Law Blog would be kind of a fun thing. Rob's Law Blog, Rod Law Blah, Rod Law Blah. Shout out, man. Thank you for becoming a membo. And shout out to your law firm. Hey, says, I've been meaning to join your channel as a member. Thank you, Rod Law Blah. says, election night in Texas. What a better time as a Texan. Not worried about the turnout. Not yet. Yeah, that's true. We got some energy. You know, primaries are always a little bit less energetic than the mains in November. But man, if this, like, we need turnout. We need Republicans to get engaged if we want to win. Kelly C. Hey, thank you, Kelly, for being here 20 months. Thank you, Kelly, for being here so long. How many babies is that? Over 2. Thank you for hanging out with us, America. Yeah, God bless. Thank you, Kelly. We appreciate that. It's my pleasure. It's really an honor and a privilege to go through these elections together. Thank you, Rod Loblog. Rod Lob for joining up. Boopsie. Rob, how close are you to relocating now? Great show. Thanks for all your hard work. You're the best. No, Boopsie, you are. Thank you, Boopsie. And thanks, Boopsie, for the prayers and all the things that I see you send. Boopsie, we're very close. We're very, very close. I have to send one more email tonight. Hopefully it's the last email on this relocation, but it will not be. But soon, like this month, we're planning on driving out to DC this month. We have a great place. If it all goes through, should be a nice, easy move. And it's close to the action. And I think it's going to be a level up for all of us here. You know, the show is going to continue on, obviously, but we'll be able to go out. I'm looking at like IRL live stream backpacks. We can do walk and talks around the Capitol. I think it's going to be great. I know there's a little hesitation on that. Like, you go into the swamp. Do you become a part of the swamp? I don't think so. I'm not employed by anybody. I've got no funding here. This is all supported by you and your viewership and your support. So I think that we'll be nice and anchored, but it is this month. So we're like probably on the road mid-March, but we don't actually have a place to live yet. So we're working on that. Thank you, Boopsie, for asking. Larry, it's time to go to bed. Great show, Rob. Thank you, Larry. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on Locals, and thanks for the dono. Boopsie, Rob, I saw Epic Times said 2 more fatalities for a total of 6 now. Rest in peace to our dear soldiers. I did see that. Yeah, and I think that they wait 24 hours until they notify the next of kin. But CENTCOM also confirmed that. 6 now dead. And it's just horrifying. Boopsie, thank you. Prayers up for our soldiers, man. Prayers up. Hey, Real with Robo, Crenshaw lost 24 months as a member. Happy 2-year anniversary, Real with Robo. Good. Also, hi from the fam. Shout out to the Robo fam. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching and being here. We had some good victories. Yeah, of all the things, I would say Crenshaw being out is a nice development. Get somebody else in there. Let's see where we're at with Gonzalez. Any updates? 72% in, 45. That looks like it's actually getting bigger. 45 to 40 on Gonzalez. All right. Let's see what else. Yeah, okay, so Chip Roy has been called. 41 to 30, they called that. 61% in. They both will advance for a runoff. Talarico, they still have not called this one, it looks like. But he looks pretty comfortable. 52 to 46. We'll see if that changes, if there's a water main break. And then they called Cornyn and Paxton. So 66% in there. Cornyn and Paxton will advance to a runoff. They've called that. Crenshaw, they still haven't called this one. 57 to 39, 63% in. And that should be the game. Toth is over the margin. That's 57%. So hopefully he can win that one. Herrera is continuing on. And Talarico is still on. All right, so thank you for that one. Yeah, hey, Mel Snare. Oh, man, with some good comments here. Before we get to Mel, Donut. The common interpretation in Numbers in the Bible is an adulteress will be cursed with a miscarriage. Interesting. Not that the Bible says you can't go to a DNC abortion van, but you'll just be cursed with a miscarriage. Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious about that. And what's the Catholic perspective? Your boy's a Catholic. I got to go look that up. Figure out what they say. Rub some dirt on it. California transplants were the deciding factor for Cruz's last win. There may be liberal California transplants living in Austin, but the rest of us fled California to get away from the left coast and their loonies. From Rub Some Dirt on It, a.k.a. Galaxy Whirlpool. Do you have a good blood moon? yesterday, rub some dirt on it. Haven't seen any photos yet. But man, he could take some amazing pictures of the galaxy. So interesting. Yeah, and it's like, is it a filter? Like, if you leave California, it's a big deal to move, as I'm learning, like, especially, like from state to state. So is it like a filter? So you have to have enough like irritation with California that you pick up and leave and go to Texas. So that means you really hate it. Like, you really don't want it to be the same. I can see that. There's that concept about why is America so entrepreneurial? There's an argument that it's just about migration patterns. The idea being that it took kind of insane people to get on a boat and come to a foreign, unexplored new land. Like, you have to be a little nuts to like leave England, get on a boat, travel for months, get here. It's completely unexplored. It's almost like landing on a foreign planet, right? Like landing on Mars and going, yeah, we're just going to build a new country here. Like, you got to be kind of nuts. And the people who weren't exactly nuts stayed. They just stayed stayed over in Europe. And so like only the most like brave and entrepreneurial and like liberty loving people actually got on a boat and came. And so genetically or whatever, there's a filter that says a certain amount of people who didn't make that move don't have those same, criteria, those same dispositions. Interesting. Mel Snare, watching Texas closely. 15 months, Mel, almost 2 babies here. Talarico equals charlatan. Yeah. And maybe much worse. Thank you, Mel, for being here. 15 months, you rock. Chat with me. Another U.S. war. The U.S. military just joined forces with Ecuador troops to take down designated terrorist organizations in Ecuador. Southcom says. That's a lot of conflict. All right, chat with me. I haven't seen that one, but thanks for the heads up on it. Ed Mallory, I don't think Kamala came out on election night either. Was that it too? Kamala? I can't remember. There's been a lot of winning, right? Trump beat the heck out of Kamala. Trump beat the heck out of Biden, and then they stole it. And then Trump beat the heck out of Hillary. Yeah. Friends, thank you for those amazing donos. Thank you for sending those in. Very grateful. Donut, Mind Me, John, thank you both for clipping for us on the day. Shout out to our friends on Rumble sending those in. And it's been a lovely stream. So I think we're pretty much at a good stopping point. We've got Cornyn, Paxton advancing to a runoff. That's going to happen in May. Chip Roy, Middleton doing the same. Talarico has not been called yet. We've got same thing with Crenshaw, Eye Patch McCain, not been called yet, but it's looking pretty solid. 63% of the vote in. Al Green and Menifee, they're going to have a runoff. Very likely. Nobody's at 50% yet. So Menifee's 47 to 43. So Sign Master Green will be back. And Brandon Herrera also, we've got a runoff probably coming on that 45 to 40. So lots of reporting coming in, still some not. Interesting. So I think it's a good point for us to wrap on the day. Let's take a quick look at some locals comments to see what else is happening on locals. Shout out to our locals friends and see what's happening here. And then of course, members, we'll be back in the morning and we'll get into the evening or into the day. Sadie says, guilty on all accounts. In the first of its kind trial, as an alleged Appalachia high school shooter was convicted of murder. Sadie, don't even know what's going on that one, but thanks for the link and the YouTube link. And here's Rub Some Dirt on it. Oh no! Clouds, man. Clouds blocked the blood moon. Can't see it? Me either. I was hoping someone where the weather was perfect would drag out a sea star and capture his namesake for me. I wonder who you're talking about. I mean, it might be me, but I've already accomplished one of life's biggest goals, which is to capture the blood moon and then adopt that as my namesake. Robert Blood Moon Gouveia. In fact, that might be the name of our first child. Have to talk to my wife about that. Blood Moon Gouveia. Oh, yeah, that's good. Has a nice ring to it. For a boy or a girl, really doesn't matter. Either way. All right, so friends, it's been an amazing stream. Let's call it a night. It is almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast, and it's been a great night to hang together. See if we got anything over on X before we close it out. Couple of comments. Yeah, Satellite Boy says, well, if the polls close at 7 and you're not in line to vote at 7, why should you get to vote after 7? There has never been more accommodation for a person to vote. We've had 2 weeks before today to even go vote. The rules are rules. And says Talarico's a slick, fork-tongued charlatan. Exactly. And he's going to dupe a lot of independents and even some Republicans. Yeah, he's slippery, man. Versus Crockett, who's just going to like axe you something. You know, he'll have a good little soliloquy that he can unload. He goes to one of our rainbow flag churches here in ATX. He's going to be trouble. Yeah, and I was looking up his personal life. Like, is he married? I don't think so. Does he have kids? I don't know. I don't think so. Is he, you know, of a different disposition? I don't know. Hey, Statius, I can't believe Herrera is trailing, giving all the evidence against Gonzalez. It's stupefying. I agree with that. It's like just the allegation alone that your staffer literally set herself on fire and ended her life because of an alleged affair. It's like, whoa. He's denying it. It's all allegations. Of course, we believe in the presumption of innocence, but we also saw those text messages and they don't look good at all. Yeah, Dems come out, says Baby Lewis. Dems always surge in the primaries. I think that's probably true. But we got to keep our eye on the numbers and the turnout. And keep that energy up, baby. Corn Dog, great to see you for that dono. Yeah, your little goats over there. Cute little friends. All right, so friends, we'll pause here. Tomorrow, it is going to be Wednesday. We'll be back on the regular schedule. I think we have a bunch of stuff, good stuff queued up. Isn't Tim Walz and Keith Ellison coming to testify in Congress? Is that tomorrow? Might be tomorrow. But all right, members, we'll see you back here in the morning. Otherwise, friends, we'll see you back here in the afternoon. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a great election season, and it's been a real treat and an honor and a privilege to kick it off with you. Thank you for joining. Thanks for sharing the channel. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for the likes and all the things. We'll be back tomorrow to get into it again. Before we close it out, big thanks to our mods and our meme smiths who keep things nice and orderly around here. Thank yous go out to tonight. We got Donut Mind Me and John clipping hard for us. We got K-Bean, Muffin Rando, Carrie B, Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda, all modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. And thank you, my friends, for being here. Thank you for your viewership, your support, and for the fun. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll get into it again. But until we do, I hope you have the most peaceful rest, the sweetest dreams you can possibly imagine bouncing around your beautiful skull. We'll come back in the morning and tomorrow evening, and we'll see you again. Because in order to do all of this appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a great night. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news. But here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are answers. Stay